Prologue. The Poisoned Glass. The first thing you notice about the Vigneto Club after midnight isn't the sound, but the silence underneath it. The bass was a given, a physical presence that vibrated through the marble floors and into your bones. The laughter sharp and performative. The clink of crystal against crystal. The murmur of 100 conversations conducted in the language of money and lies. That was the surface. But beneath it all, in the spaces between the manufactured noise, was a watchful, calculating quiet. It was the silence of predators circling, of deals sealed with blood disguised as wine, of secrets traded like currency in the shadows of velvet booths. I moved through it all like a ghost. White shirt starched until it could cut. Black vest that felt like armor. A bow tie knotted so tight it might have been a noose. My name tag read Sasha Greaves. And for the last 4 years, this gilded prison had been my entire world. I poured 15-year-old scotch for men who smiled with their mouths while their eyes promised violence. I served champagne to women whose diamonds were as sharp and cold as their laughter. I was invisible, a pair of hands that delivered drinks and disappeared. And invisibility was the only thing that kept me breathing. Tonight the silence felt different. Heavier. It started the moment he walked in. The crowd didn't need to be told to move. They simply did, a human tide parting for a shark. Lorenzo Volkov. The wolf. I didn't need the hushed whispers or the way conversations died mid-sentence to know who he was. Everyone in this city knew. His reputation was a shadow that stretched across every dark corner, every back alley deal, every body that washed up in the harbor with cement shoes. He was taller than I expected. Built with the solid, immovable grace of a man who had never needed to prove his strength because everyone already knew. Dark hair silvered at the temples. A suit that probably cost more than my annual salary, tailored to lethal perfection. But it was his eyes that arrested me, chilling pale gray like winter sky moments before a storm breaks. They scanned the room with the bored ownership of a king surveying his kingdom. And for one terrifying heartbeat, they landed on me. I dropped my gaze immediately, my pulse hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I focused on polishing an already spotless glass, the routine motion a desperate anchor to reality. Don't look up. Don't attract attention. Be the ghost. His entourage settled into the reserved corner booth, a nest of black suits and harder eyes. But Volkov didn't sit. He detached himself from the group and walked toward the bar. Heard me. Each footstep on the polished floor was a nail in a coffin I hadn't known I was building. The space around me emptied as other patrons suddenly found urgent reasons to be elsewhere. I was ground zero for whatever was about to happen. Vodka. His voice bypassed my ears and vibrated straight into my bones. Accentless, precise, utterly devoid of warmth. Crystal head if you have it. Neat. I nodded, my throat too tight for words. I turned, my movements suddenly clumsy, and reached for the iconic skull-shaped bottle on the top shelf. My hands, usually so steady after years of this work, trembled slightly. I could feel his gaze on my back like a physical weight. As I poured the crystalline liquid into a heavy tumbler, a man slid onto the stool beside Volkov. Younger, with slicked back hair and a nervous energy that radiated off him in waves. Marco Santini. Junior manager. I'd never liked him. Something about the way his smile never reached his eyes, the way he watched people like he was calculating their worth down to the penny. Lorenzo, Marco said. His voice too loud in the sudden quiet. A pleasure as always. Let me get that for you. Before I could react, Marco reached across the bar and took the glass I'd just poured. He set it in front of Volkov with a flourish that made my blood run cold. Then he produced a small, unlabeled bottle from his inner jacket pocket. A gift, Marco said. His voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper I was clearly meant to overhear. From the new shipment. The purest you'll ever taste. A special blend just for you. He unscrewed the cap with theatrical care and tipped a single clear drop into the vodka. It vanished without a trace. My breath hitched. Every instinct I possessed, Every lesson learned from a childhood spent watching my father navigate this same world, screamed in unison. This is wrong. This is a hit. Marco's posture was too eager. His pupils dilated. The way he'd intercepted the drink I'd poured, the secretive bottle, the performance of it all. I'd seen this script before, acted out in different bars, different cities. The ending was always the same. Volkov stared at the glass, his expression unreadable. His fingers moved toward it with unhurried grace. Time didn't slow down. Shattered. My father's face flashed in my mind. His voice an echo from a grave I'd spent 6 years trying to forget. Don't ever get involved, Sasha. You see something, you look the other way. That's how you survive. But looking the other way had gotten him killed. My hand moved before my brain could catch up. I grabbed a pristine cocktail napkin and a pen from beside the register. 5 words, scrawled in handwriting that shook with adrenaline. Don't drink it. Smile and leave now. I slid the napkin across the polished wood. It came to a stop beside the untouched glass. Then I turned away, busying myself with the sink, pretending to wash a glass that didn't need washing. My entire body braced for the explosion. Shouting, violence, the crack of a gunshot. The silence behind me stretched taut and deadly. I could feel his gaze shift from the napkin to me. I heard the soft rustle of paper as he picked it up. 1 second. The bass from the club's sound system pounded in my temples. Then a hand shot out. Not to take the glass. Not to throw the napkin away. His fingers, strong, impossibly warm, wrapped around my wrist and pinned it to the bar. The grip wasn't brutal, but it was absolute. Unbreakable. I gasped, my head snapping up to meet those winter-gray eyes. There was no anger there. No surprise. Just a deep, unnerving intensity, as if he were seeing me, truly seeing me for the first time. As if he were memorizing every detail of my face, cataloging it for future use. He leaned in close. His voice a whisper meant only for me, the scent of cedar and cold night air washing over me. Why, he murmured, his thumb pressing against the frantic pulse in my wrist. Would I do that, little ghost? The world narrowed to that single point of contact. His hand on my wrist. His eyes on mine. Marco's confused expression in my peripheral vision. The poisoned glass sitting between us like a loaded gun. I had broken every rule of survival. And I knew, with terrifying certainty, that my life of invisibility was over. Chapter 1. The Cage of Velvet. I woke to sunlight I didn't recognize. Not the anemic, filtered gray that struggled through my apartment's single window, strained through years of city grime and the shadow of the building next door. This was pure, unobstructed light, the kind that only existed high above the pollution, above the noise, above the lives of people like me. For a disoriented moment, I thought I was dead. Then the memories crashed back. The club. The napkin. His hand on my wrist. The way he'd stood from the bar stool with lethal grace, still holding me, and spoken 3 words that had ended my old life. You're coming with me. I sat up too quickly, and the room tilted. Expensive sheets, Egyptian cotton, probably 1,000 thread count, slid off my body. I was still wearing last night's clothes minus my shoes. The vest and bow tie were gone, but my white shirt was wrinkled, smelling of sweat and fear and the faint lingering scent of his cologne. The bedroom was enormous. Minimalist. A king-sized bed with a leather headboard. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city that took my breath away. Lake Michigan stretched to the horizon, steel gray and endless. The skyline glittered in the morning sun like a promise or a threat. I was in a tower. A prison disguised as paradise. My bag, the worn leather messenger bag that held everything I owned that mattered, sat on a chair by the door. I lunged for it, my hands shaking as I rifled through it. Phone. Wallet. The photo of my father I kept hidden in the inner pocket. Oh there. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Not just weak, completely blocked. Course. I tried the door. Unlocked. That surprised me until I stepped into the hallway and understood. This wasn't a room with a locked door. This was a gilded cage with invisible bars. Where would I go? We were so high up that jumping would be suicide. The elevator would require a key card I didn't have. And even if I made it to the street, he would find me. Men like Lorenzo Volkov always found what they were looking for. The hallway led to an open-concept living space that belonged in an architectural magazine. Polished concrete floors. Low-slung leather furniture in shades of charcoal and black. Abstract art on stark white walls. Violent slashes of red and black that looked like controlled rage frozen in time. And there, standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows with his back to me, was the wolf himself. He'd changed. No more suit. He wore dark slacks and a black cashmere sweater that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders, the controlled power in his frame. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd showered recently. In the morning light, the silver at his temples was more pronounced, adding a distinguished edge to features that would have been brutal without it. He didn't turn, but he spoke. "There's coffee. And breakfast if you're hungry." His voice was different from last night. Still commanding but without the lethal edge. Almost domestic. It was more unsettling than if he'd been pointing a gun at me. "I want to go home." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "No, you don't." He turned then, and those gray eyes pinned me in place. "You want to feel safe. Home is not safe anymore. This is a cage. This is protection." He moved toward a dining table I hadn't noticed. Sleek black glass set for two. A carafe of coffee steamed beside covered dishes. "Sit. Then we'll talk about what happens next." "What happens next is you let me leave." A smile ghosted across his lips. Not warm. Not kind. Just amused. "You saved my life last night, Miss Greaves. That makes you valuable. It also makes you a target. The men who wanted me dead now know your face. They know you interfered. They will come for you to tie up loose ends. So no, I will not let you leave. Not until I find them and eliminate the threat." The casual way he said "eliminate" made my skin crawl. This was his world. A place where human lives were problems to be solved, threats to be neutralized. "I didn't ask to be valuable," I said, but I moved toward the table. Partly because I was starving. I hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Partly because standing in the middle of his living room felt too exposed, too vulnerable. I poured coffee with shaking hands. Black, no sugar. The way my father used to drink it. Volkov sat across from me, watching. Always watching. "Tell me about your father." The coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "What?" "Last night you recognized a classic assassination technique. You saw the signs before I did. That kind of situational awareness isn't learned from bartending school. It's learned from experience. From proximity to violence." He leaned back, utterly relaxed. "Your father was connected to this world. Tell me how." I set the cup down before I could drop it. My mind raced. How much did he already know? How much had he found out in the hours while I slept? "He's dead," I said flatly. "I'm aware. Michael Greaves. Import-export business. He worked the docks for the Castellano family until 6 years ago, when he testified against them in exchange for witness protection. He died 3 months into his new identity. A car accident that the police ruled accidental but that everyone in our world knows was a hit. The room spun. He knew. He knew everything. Then why ask? My voice cracked. Because I want to hear it from you. I want to know what you remember. What he taught you. What made you break the cardinal rule last night? He leaned forward, his gaze intense. Because people like us, people raised in the shadow of this life, we have 2 choices. We run or we adapt. You've been running for 6 years. Last night you adapted. I want to know why. The truth sat heavy on my tongue. Could lie. I could tell him my father was a saint who got caught up in bad business. But Lorenzo Volkov hadn't become the most feared man in Chicago by being easy to fool. He wasn't a good man, I said quietly. He moved product for the Castellanos. Guns mostly. Some drugs. He justified it by saying he never touched the drugs himself, never pulled a trigger. Like that made him clean. I laughed, a bitter sound. When the feds offered him a deal, he took it. Not because he grew a conscience. Because he knew the Castellanos were about to purge their organization, and he was on the list. But they found him anyway. They always do. I met his eyes. The accident happened on a Tuesday. I was supposed to be in the car with him, but I had a late class. He died alone on a road in Nebraska, and my voice broke. I learned that invisibility is the only currency that matters. You don't get involved. You don't stand out. You survive by being forgettable. Yet last night you made yourself very memorable. Last night I saw a man about to drink poison and I stopped. Why had I done it? I don't know. Instinct. Stupidity. Conscience, he corrected softly. The same thing that got your father killed. The same thing that makes you dangerous to yourself. He stood, walking to a sideboard where he poured himself something amber from a crystal decanter. Scotch at 9 in the morning. Marco Santini was found dead in his apartment 3 hours ago. Parent suicide. A gunshot to the head. A note confessing to embezzlement and personal demons. The food I'd eaten turned to lead in my stomach. I did nothing, Volkov interrupted. I didn't need to. The people who hired him cleaned up their mess. That's how this works, Sasha. They tried to kill me. When they failed, they erased the evidence. Marco was never going to survive the night, whether you warned me or not. He turned back to me. But you did warn me. And they saw it. The club has cameras. My enemies have access to those feeds by now. They've seen you slide that napkin. They've seen me take you out of the club. They know your face, and they will assume you know more than you do. So I'm dead. The words came out hollow. Not while you're here. He set his glass down and moved toward me with that predatory grace. You are under my protection now. You will stay in this penthouse. You will not contact anyone from your old life. You will not leave without my explicit permission. In exchange, you will be kept safe, fed, and comfortable. I'm a prisoner. You're alive, he corrected. There's a difference. And before you start quoting me the Bill of Rights, understand that I saved your life last night. You saved mine first, but I returned the favor by bringing you here instead of sending you home to wait for a bullet in the dark. He was right and I hated him for it. How long? Yes. Until I find who ordered the hit. Until I eliminate the threat. Until you're no longer valuable as a witness or a loose end. He studied me. Days. Weeks. It depends on how quickly my enemies reveal themselves. And then you'll have a choice. Return to your life with a new identity and relocation assistance. Or, he paused. Stay here. With you. You have skills I can use. Observation. Linguistic analysis. Your father taught you to see the angles, even if he never taught you when to look away. Those skills are rare. Valuable. I'm not a criminal. Neither am I. His smile was sharp. I'm a businessman. I deal in shipping, in real estate, in international logistics. Everything I do is legal, technically. The world I inhabit simply has gray areas. You've already proven you can see those shades of gray. The question is whether you can live in them. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the concrete floor. I need time to think. You have all the time you need. He gestured toward a hallway. The library is through there. The guest suite is yours. There's a gym on the lower level, accessible by the private elevator. Kale will be stationed outside if you need anything. Kale. My head of security. Large man, scar through his eyebrow. You'll like him. He doesn't talk much. The casual way he described his bodyguard, like he was discussing household staff, would have been funny in another life. In this one, it was just another reminder of the world I'd stumbled into. I walked toward the library without another word, feeling his eyes on me the entire way. The library was a revelation. 2 stories tall, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves accessed by a wrought-iron spiral staircase. Real books, hundreds of them, their leather spines worn with use. This wasn't a decorator's showcase. This was a reader's sanctuary. I ran my fingers along the spines as I walked. Philosophy, history, poetry in multiple languages, Italian, Russian, French, Dostoevsky, Rilke. These were the books of a man who thought deeply about the darkness, who sought to understand it through words written by others who had stared into the abyss. It was the most human thing I'd seen in the entire penthouse. On the second level, tucked into a reading nook, I found a leather armchair and a small desk. And on that desk, as if waiting for me, was a slim volume of Italian sonnets. Picked it up. The spine cracked with familiarity. This book had been opened many times, always to the same pages. I let it fall open naturally. The page was marked in faint pencil. One sonnet circled. L'amor mio è come febbre, bramando ancora. My love is like a fever, longing still. I snapped the book shut, my heart doing something strange and uncomfortable in my chest. This was a crack in his armor. A vulnerability left exposed, perhaps deliberately. The wolf read love sonnets in Italian. The man who dealt in violence and control longed for something with the desperation of fever. I didn't know what to do with that information. Didn't know if it made him more dangerous or less. I sat in the leather chair and stared out the window at the city below. Somewhere down there was my apartment, my life, my carefully constructed invisibility. Felt like another world already unreachable. My father's voice echoed in my memory. The only way to survive is to not be seen. But I had been seen. By the most dangerous man in Chicago. And now I was trapped in his tower, in his world, with his books of poetry and his gray eyes that saw too much. The ghost had been captured by the wolf. The question was whether I would be devoured or transformed. Chapter 2. The Wolf and the Ghost. The first 3 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. I barely saw Lorenzo. He left early each morning. I'd hear the elevator chime at dawn, and returned late, long after I'd retreated to the guest room. When our paths did cross, it was brief. A nod in the hallway. His voice from the study, speaking in rapid Russian on the phone. Once, I found him standing at the windows at 2 in the morning, silhouetted against the city lights, a glass of scotch in his hand. He didn't acknowledge me, and I didn't speak. I just retreated back to my room like the ghost he'd named me. Cale, the silent mountain of a man, was my only constant companion. He stood outside the penthouse door, a living barrier between me and the world. On the second day I tested the boundaries. "Can I go for a walk?" asked him. He didn't even blink. "No." "Can I go to the gym downstairs? With an escort? Can I breathe without permission?" The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "That's still complimentary, Miss Greaves." So I spent my time in the library, reading books I'd never had time for in my old life. I read Dante's Inferno and thought about circles of hell. I read Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment and wondered if Lorenzo saw himself as Raskolnikov, a man who believed himself above conventional morality. I read the Italian sonnets again and again, trying to understand the man who had marked them. On the fourth day, everything changed. I was in the library when I heard voices in the living room. Lorenzo's, low and controlled. And another man's, rougher, with an accent I couldn't quite place. 3 potential sources. The unfamiliar voice was saying. Santini was just the trigger man. Someone inside gave him access, timing, opportunity. And the poison. Lorenzo's voice. Ricin. Professional grade. Not something you pick up at the corner pharmacy. This was planned months in advance. Curiosity pulled me toward the door. I knew I shouldn't listen. Knew that whatever they were discussing was none of my business. Was probably dangerous to know. But I'd spent 4 years serving drinks to criminals. I'd learned that information was the most valuable currency in this world. And if I was going to survive here, really survive, not just exist, I needed to understand the game being played. I crept closer, staying in the shadows of the hallway. Through the partially open door, I could see Lorenzo sitting in one of the leather chairs. His posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. The other man stood by the windows. Older, maybe 60, with iron-gray hair and the weathered face of someone who'd seen too much. 3 sources, Lorenzo repeated. Names. Castellano is the obvious choice. He's been trying to expand into your territory for 2 years. He has motive and resources. My breath caught. Castellano. My father's old employer. The family that had killed him. But, Lorenzo prompted. But Castellano is old school. He'd come at you directly, not with poison in a public club. Too subtle for him. The older man pulled out a tablet, swiping through screens. The second option is the Kozlov Bratva out of Brighton Beach. They've been making noise about Chicago being open territory since your father died. My father died 15 years ago. They've had plenty of time to make a move. True. Which brings me to the third option, and the one I think is most likely. The man turned the tablet toward Lorenzo. Sergio Armati. The name hung in the air like a death sentence. Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Tightening, barely perceptible. Sergio is family. Sergio is your cousin. He's also second in line to your entire organization. And he's been spending a lot of money lately. Money he doesn't have from legitimate sources. Show me. I watched as the older man pulled up financial records, transactions, a web of shell companies and offshore accounts. Even from my position in the hallway, I could see the pattern. Money flowing out, services rendered, payments made to ghost entities. He's hiring, the older man said. Building his own crew. Quietly but not quietly enough. And 3 weeks ago, he had a meeting with someone very interesting. Another swipe. A grainy photograph appeared on the screen, taken from a distance, through a telephoto lens. 2 men at a cafe table. One was younger, dark-haired, handsome in a cruel way. The other was partially obscured, but something about his posture, the way he held himself, made my skin crawl. The man on the left is Sergio, the older man confirmed. The one on the right took me 2 days to identify. He doesn't like being photographed. His name is Silas Hawke. Lorenzo leaned forward slightly. The broker. The very same. If Sergio wanted to hire someone to kill you without getting his hands dirty, Hawke is exactly who he'd call. Hawke doesn't do the work himself. He facilitates. Finds the right people, provides the resources, arranges the logistics. He's the middleman for the kind of job that needs to look like it came from outside the family. And Santini probably didn't even know who hired him. Hawke would have used a cutout maybe too. Santini thought he was working for someone else entirely, right up until they put a bullet in his head. Lorenzo stood, walking to the windows. His reflection in the glass was dark, predatory. If Sergio wants me dead badly enough to hire Hawke, he won't stop with one failed attempt. No, the older man agreed. He'll try again. Before you can identify him as the source and move against him. Then we move first. Quietly. I want surveillance on Sergio. Everywhere he goes, everyone he talks to. I want his financials dissected down to the penny. And I want Hawke found. Hawke is a ghost, Lorenzo. Nobody's ever gotten close to him. Then we'll be the first. Lorenzo turned back to his companion. Franco I want. He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes had found me in the hallway. I froze, my heart dropping into my stomach. How long had he known I was there? Since the beginning. Had this entire conversation been a test? Miss Greaves. His voice was silk over steel. Please join us. Since you're so interested in the discussion. There was no point in running. Nowhere to go. I stepped into the room, my spine straight, refusing to show the fear coursing through my veins. The older man, Franco, assessed me with sharp, intelligent eyes. This is the bartender. Sasha Greaves, Lorenzo said. She's the reason I'm not currently in the morgue. Sasha, this is Franco Marchetti. He handles Investigations for me. Investigations. A polite word for something far darker. Franco's gaze was measuring, skeptical. How much did she hear? All of it, I suspect. Lorenzo's eyes never left mine. She's observant. It's one of her more dangerous qualities. You can't let her walk around knowing. She's not walking anywhere, Lorenzo interrupted smoothly. She's staying here, under protection. And as of now, she's going to help us. My mouth went dry. Help you how? Lorenzo gestured to the tablet Franco still held. Come here. Look at this. I approached slowly, every instinct screaming at me to refuse, to maintain distance, to protect whatever scraps of innocence I had left. But I was already too far in. Had been since the moment I slid that napkin across the bar. Franco handed me the tablet reluctantly. On the screen was a document. Financial records, transaction histories. The kind of thing that should have been encrypted, protected, buried under layers of corporate shell games. These are Sergio's accounts, Lorenzo said. What do you see? I scanned the columns of numbers, the dates, the cryptic transaction descriptions. First, nothing stood out. Then I noticed it. Small inconsistencies in the language. The phrasing wasn't quite right. The descriptions, I said slowly. They're off. Off how? Pointed to one entry. For rendering of consultancy services. Then another. Payment for strategic assessment rendered. I looked up at Lorenzo. The grammar is technically correct, but it's not natural. It's how someone who learned English as a second language would write it. Formal, stilted. They're mimicking the language from legitimate invoices without understanding the natural flow. Franco leaned closer. His skepticism shifting to interest. What else? I scrolled through more entries. The pattern repeated. Awkward phrasing. Unnatural word order. Whoever is creating these fake transactions isn't a native English speaker. Or they're having someone else create them. Someone who's technically proficient but not fluent. Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Satisfaction. Sergio's English is perfect. He was educated in Boston. But his bookkeeper isn't, Franco said, catching on. Victor Oransky. He does Sergio's personal accounts. He's been in the country 5 years, still struggles with English. Which means Sergio is using his own people to create the paper trail, Lorenzo concluded. Sloppy. Arrogant. He looked at me with something that might have been approval. In 5 minutes, you found something our forensic accountants missed in 2 weeks. I'm a translator, I said quietly. I see language patterns. It's what I do. It's what you did. He took the tablet from me, his fingers brushing mine. The contact was brief, electric. Now you're going to do something else. You're going to help us find every inconsistency in Sergio's operation. Every linguistic tell, every pattern that doesn't fit. You're going to help me build a case that proves he tried to kill me. And then what? Yes. You kill him. The room went silent. Franco shifted uncomfortably. Lorenzo's gaze went cold, distant. That's not your concern. It is if I'm helping you build it. If I'm complicit in. You became complicit the moment you saved my life. He cut me off. You chose a side, Sasha. Whether you meant to or not, you made yourself part of this. The only question now is whether you survive it. He was right. God help me, he was right. My father had always said the same thing. In this world, there are no innocent bystanders. You're either a player or you're collateral damage. I'd spent 6 years trying to be neither. Trying to be invisible. But the wolf had seen me. And now I was in the game whether I wanted to be or not. Fine, I said. I'll help. But I want something in return. Lorenzo's eyebrow rose. You're negotiating. You said I have valuable skills. Valuable things have a price. A slow smile spread across his face. Not warm but appreciative. Predatory. Name it. Information. About the Castellanos. About what happened to my father. The smile faded. That's a dangerous price. I'm already in danger. At least this way, I get something for it. Franco made a sound that might have been approval. Lorenzo studied me for a long moment, those gray eyes reading me like one of his books, seeing past the surface to whatever truth I was trying to hide. Agreed, he finally said. You help me find Sergio's weaknesses, and I'll tell you everything I know about your father's death. Deal. He held out his hand. I stared at it. This was the moment. The point of no return. If I shook his hand, I wasn't just accepting protection. I was accepting partnership, alliance, complicity in whatever came next. My father's voice whispered in my memory, "Don't ever get involved." But I was already involved. Had been since the moment I'd scrawled those 5 words on a napkin. I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, absolute. He held my hand a moment longer than necessary, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that sent electricity racing up my arm. "Welcome to the game, little ghost," he said softly. "Try not to get killed." Over the next week, I learned the architecture of Lorenzo Volkov's empire. Franco brought files, encrypted drives, financial records, surveillance photos, intercepted communications. I sat at the dining table for hours each day, a laptop in front of me, dissecting language patterns like a surgeon with a scalpel. Lorenzo worked beside me, his presence a constant weight. He'd sit across the table with his own laptop, conducting business in multiple languages, Russian with his Eastern European contacts, Italian with the old families, English with his legitimate corporate interests. He moved between worlds with fluid ease, a chameleon who could be charming in one call and terrifying in the next. And he watched me, constantly. "You're staring," I said one afternoon, not looking up from the spreadsheet I was analyzing. "I'm observing. There's a difference. It's distracting." "Good. You work better when you're slightly off balance. More intuitive, less second-guessing." I looked up then. He was leaning back in his chair, a cup of coffee in his hand, his expression thoughtful. In the afternoon light, with his sleeves rolled up and his hair slightly disheveled, he looked almost normal, like a man, not a wolf. It was more dangerous than his cold, controlled persona. "Did you learn that in business school?" "Yes." "How to make people uncomfortable to improve their performance." "I learned it from my father. He believed discomfort bred excellence. Fear bred loyalty." His gaze darkened. He was half right. "Which half?" "Discomfort does breed excellence. But fear breeds betrayal. Every time." He set down his coffee. "That's why Sergio will fail. He's trying to build power through intimidation, through fear of what happens if people don't obey him. But fear is a weak foundation. It cracks under pressure. And what do you build on?" He looked at me directly. "Respect, mutual benefit, and the understanding that I am far more dangerous as an ally than as an enemy." A chill ran down my spine. Not from fear but from understanding. This was his philosophy, his code. He wasn't a mindless thug. He was a strategist, a chess player who thought 10 moves ahead. And I was sitting across from him, learning to speak his language. "I found something," I said, turning the laptop toward him. "Look at these transaction codes. They all follow the same pattern except for these 3. The codes are formatted differently. Letters where there should be numbers, a dash in the wrong place." Lorenzo leaned forward, studying the screen. His shoulder brushed mine, and I caught that scent again. Cedar and something darker, more complex. "These transactions are to the same ghost company," I continued, trying to focus on the work instead of his proximity. "But the formatting suggests they were entered by a different person. Someone who didn't know the standard code structure." "Hawk," Lorenzo said softly. "He's using his own people to handle the money, not Sergio's regular channels. Which means if we can trace where these payments went, we find Hawk." He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "Franco, I'm sending you something. 3 transactions, non-standard formatting. I want them traced back to the source. Today." He hung up and looked at me. For the first time since I'd met him, he smiled. A real smile, one that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. "You're good at this," he said. "I'm good at patterns. This is just another kind of translation. No, you're good at seeing what others miss. At finding the truth hidden under layers of deception." He stood, walking around the table until he was behind me. I felt his hand rest lightly on the back of my chair. "Do you know why people call me the wolf?" My throat went dry. "Because you're a predator. Because wolves hunt in packs. Because we protect our own. Because we remember betrayal and we never forgive it." His voice was low, intimate. "But there's another reason. Wolves mate for life. When they choose absolutely. Forever." The air between us charged with something electric, dangerous. "Is that a threat?" I whispered. "It's a fact." His hand moved to my shoulder, barely touching. "You've proven yourself valuable, Sasha. Useful. But more than that, you've proven yourself loyal. You could have run. Could have gone to the police, the FBI, tried to trade what you know for immunity. But you stayed. You helped. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. You chose me." His thumb stroked once, softly, against the side of my neck. "The question is whether you're beginning to understand what that means." I should have pulled away. Should have stood up, created distance, reminded him that I was here under duress, that loyalty bought with captivity wasn't real loyalty. But I didn't move. Because some traitorous part of me was beginning to feel safe here. Protected. The ghost was tired of being invisible. Before I could respond, the elevator chimed. Lorenzo stepped back smoothly, his hand leaving my shoulder, the moment broken. Franco entered, his face grim. "We've got a problem." Lorenzo's expression shifted instantly. The moment of intimacy locked away behind cold calculation. "What kind of problem?" "Sergio knows we're looking at him. Someone tipped him off. He's moving assets, closing accounts, burning evidence." Franco handed Lorenzo a tablet. "And he's escalating. 2 of our warehouses were hit last night. Professional jobs. In and out, no witnesses. They took shipping manifests, client lists, financial records. How much did they get? Enough to damage us. Enough to know where we're vulnerable." Franco's gaze flicked to me. "And they took something else. Security footage from the Vigneto Club. All of it, including the night of the poisoning." My blood ran cold. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. "He's building a case. Trying to prove we have a witness, someone who saw what happened. Someone who could testify." "He's going to come for her," Franco said bluntly. "If he can eliminate the witness, there's no proof the poisoning ever happened. It's his word against yours." Lorenzo's hand moved to the small of my back, possessive and protective. "Then we move first. Tonight. We're going to pay Sergio a visit." "Lorenzo." Franco's voice held a warning. "I'm not asking your permission, Franco. I'm giving you an order. We go in quiet. We make it clear that I know what he's done. And we give him a choice. Back down or face the consequences. And if he doesn't back down..." Lorenzo's smile was cold. "Then we ensure he can't try again." He looked down at me, and in his eyes I saw the wolf fully unleashed. "Get ready, little ghost. You're coming with us. You're going to see exactly what happens when someone betrays the pack." Chapter 3. The Price of Silence. The car was a black SUV with windows so heavily tinted they looked like polished obsidian. I sat in the back beside Lorenzo, Franco in the front passenger seat, and Cale driving. Another vehicle followed behind us. More of Lorenzo's men, shadows I'd learned to recognize by their silent efficiency. Night had fallen over Chicago, turning the city into a constellation of artificial stars. We drove through neighborhoods that shifted from gleaming downtown towers to industrial wastelands in the space of a few blocks. This was the city most people never saw, the places where legitimate business ended and Lorenzo's world began. I was wearing different clothes. Dark jeans, a black sweater, boots instead of the flats I'd been living in. They'd appeared in my room that afternoon with a note in Lorenzo's precise handwriting. Dress for shadows, not light. Now, sitting beside him in the leather-scented darkness of the SUV, I understood why. "Where are we going?" I asked, breaking the heavy silence. "Sergio owns a construction company," Lorenzo said, his eyes on his phone screen. "Legitimate business, mostly. But the main office has a private floor. That's where he conducts his real operations. He'll be there tonight. He always is when he's feeling threatened." "How do you know that?" Slight smile. "Because I know my cousin. He thinks height equals power. Being above everyone else makes him feel safe." His gaze shifted to me. "It's a flawed philosophy. The higher you climb, the farther you have to fall." The construction company was in a neighborhood of warehouses and half-finished developments, the kind of area that looked post-apocalyptic at night. The building itself was modern, all glass and steel, standing out like a monument to ambition among the industrial decay. We parked 2 blocks away, in the shadow of an abandoned factory. Lorenzo's phone buzzed. He read the message, then looked at Franco. "Surveillance confirms 4 men inside with Sergio. 2 on the ground floor, 2 on his private level. Security system is standard. Cameras, motion sensors, keypad entry. Can we bypass it?" Franco asked. "We don't need to." Lorenzo pocketed his phone. "We're expected." That made me sit up straighter. "What?" "I called Sergio this afternoon. Told him we needed to talk. Man to man. Cousin to cousin." Lorenzo's voice was cold. "He thinks this is a negotiation. A chance for him to explain himself, to convince me that the poisoning was someone else's work. He believes he can talk his way out of this." "Can he?" asked. Lorenzo looked at me, and in the dim light his eyes were colorless, empty. "No one talks their way out of trying to kill me. But I'll let him try. I want to hear what lies he's prepared, what story he thinks I'll believe. It will tell me how stupid he really is." He opened the car door. "Sasha, you stay with Kale. Franco and I will go in first. If anything goes wrong, I'm coming with you." The words were out before I could stop them. Lorenzo paused, half out of the vehicle, and turned back to me with an expression I couldn't read. "No. You said I was part of this. That I chose a side. If that's true, then I don't hide in the car while you walk into danger. This isn't a boardroom discussion, Sasha. This is. I know what it is. I'm not naive." I met his gaze. "But you said I see things others miss. What if Sergio has people you don't know about? What if there's something in that building that doesn't fit the pattern? You need my eyes." Franco made a sound that might have been approval. Lorenzo's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking beneath the skin. For a moment I thought he'd refuse, thought he'd order Kale to lock me in the car and drive away. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, flat object, a knife in a leather sheath. He handed it to me. "If anyone touches you," he said, his voice deadly soft, "you use this. You don't hesitate. You don't ask questions. You survive. Understood?" Took the knife. It was heavier than I expected, the weight of it both terrifying and strangely reassuring. "Understood. She stays between us at all times," Lorenzo said to Franco. "If shooting starts, she's the priority." "Understood." We moved through the darkness like ghosts, appropriate, given Lorenzo's name for me. The building's entrance was locked, but Franco produced a keycard with practiced ease. The door clicked open and we slipped inside. The lobby was sterile, corporate, marble floors, a reception desk that no one had manned for hours, elevator banks with brushed steel doors. Security cameras watched from the corners, red lights blinking like mechanical eyes. "He knows we're here," Franco murmured, gesturing to the cameras. "Good." Lorenzo pressed the elevator button. "I want him to have time to think, to worry, to wonder what I'm going to do." The elevator arrived with a soft chime that sounded obscenely loud in the silence. We stepped inside, Lorenzo pressing the button for the 6th floor, the top level. As the doors closed, I caught sight of our reflection in the polished steel. Lorenzo in his dark suit, looking like death in expensive clothing. Franco, older and harder, with a gun visible under his jacket. And me, pale and out of place, clutching a knife I barely knew how to use. What the hell was I doing here? The elevator rose with sickening speed. My ears popped. My heart hammered against my ribs. The knife felt slick in my sweating palm. Lorenzo's hand found the small of my back, steady and warm. "Breathe," he murmured. "You're safe. I won't let anything happen to you." The doors opened to a dimly lit hallway. Expensive carpet muffled our footsteps. At the end of the corridor, double doors stood open, light spilling out. And in that light stood a man. Sergio Armati looked like Lorenzo's shadow, similar height and build, dark hair, sharp features. But where Lorenzo's face was all hard angles and control, Sergio's had a cruel beauty to it. He smiled as we approached, but the smile never reached his eyes. "Cousin," he said, spreading his arms in a gesture of welcome that was pure theater. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't come." "Sergio." Lorenzo's voice was flat, emotionless. "We need to talk." Of course. "Come in, please." Sergio's gaze slid to me, and something ugly flickered in his expression. "And you've brought a guest. How unexpected." We entered what looked like a luxury apartment masquerading as an office. Leather furniture, a bar cart with crystal decanters, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the industrial wasteland below. Two men stood in the shadows near the windows, Sergio's security. Franco positioned himself to watch them, his hand resting casually near his concealed weapon. Lorenzo didn't sit. He stood in the center of the room like a king in hostile territory, utterly unafraid. 3 weeks ago you met with Silas Hawke. 2 weeks ago, Marco Santini deposited $50,000 into an offshore account. 1 week ago, Marco tried to poison me at the Vigneto Club. Do you see where this is going, Sergio? The smile faded from Sergio's face. I see my cousin has been listening to paranoid fantasies. I see financial records, security footage, transaction histories. Lorenzo pulled out his phone, swiping through screens. I see a pattern of betrayal that leads directly to you. Circumstantial. All of it. Sergio poured himself a drink with steady hands. I met with Hawke about a business opportunity that had nothing to do with you. Santini's deposits came from a gambling win, easily verified. And his attempt on your life. That was his own desperate act. He'd been stealing from the club for months, thought killing you would cover his tracks. It was a good lie. Smooth, plausible, with just enough detail to sound true. But I'd seen the financial records, had traced the patterns myself. And I could see the tiny tells, the way Sergio's left hand clenched slightly when he mentioned Hawke, the almost imperceptible pause before he said Santini's name, the way his eyes shifted to the right when he talked about the gambling win. He was lying. And he knew Lorenzo knew it. Interesting story, Lorenzo said. Here's mine. You've spent the last year building your own organization within mine. Skimming profits, recruiting my men, consolidating power. You've been patient, methodical, smart even. But you've made one critical mistake. And what's that? You forgot that I built this empire by being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than everyone who tried to take it from me. Including family. The temperature in the room dropped. Sergio set down his drink. The two men by the windows shifted, and I saw Franco's hand move fractionally closer to his gun. Are you threatening me, cousin? Sergio's voice had lost its warmth. Now it was cold, calculating. In my own office. That seems unwise. I'm offering you a choice. Back down. Dissolve your side operations. Return what you've taken. Do that, and we can forget this unpleasantness. You'll remain part of the family. Remain under my protection. And if I refuse? Lorenzo's smile was terrible to see. Then you'll join Marco in whatever afterlife awaits men who betray their blood. For a long moment no one moved. The silence was suffocating, heavy with violence waiting to be unleashed. Then Sergio laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "You've gone soft, Lorenzo. The old you would have walked in here with guns blazing, wouldn't have offered me a choice. But now," his eyes slid to me again, "now you bring a woman to a war council. You offer negotiations instead of bullets. Hawk was right, you've lost your edge." "Hawk said that?" "Oh yes. We've had several conversations since you killed his meal ticket. He's very interested in our family dynamics. Very interested in helping me restructure things." Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but I felt him tense beside me. "So you're admitting it? You hired Hawk. You ordered my death." "I'm admitting that I saw an opportunity, that I recognized weakness, that I did what needed to be done to ensure this family's survival." Sergio's mask had completely fallen away now, revealing the ambition beneath. "You're not our father, Lorenzo. You don't have his fire, his willingness to do what's necessary. You've grown comfortable, complacent. This empire needs a leader who isn't afraid to get his hands bloody." "My hands have never been clean," Lorenzo said softly. "You're about to remember why." He moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was standing still, the next his fist connected with Sergio's jaw with a crack that made me flinch. Sergio staggered back, blood streaming from his split lip. The room exploded into motion. Sergio's men pulled their guns. Franco's weapon was already out, aimed and steady. I stumbled backward, my back hitting the wall, the knife gripped uselessly in my hand. "Don't," Franco said calmly, his gun trained on the closer man. "You'll be dead before you pull the trigger. So will your friend. And then Lorenzo will take his time with Sergio. Is that really how you want this to end?" The two men hesitated, looking to Sergio for orders. Sergio wiped blood from his mouth, his eyes burning with hatred. "You think you've won. You think killing me solves anything. Hawk has already been paid. The contract stands whether I'm alive or dead. You're a dead man walking, cousin. And when you fall, everyone will know you died because you were too weak to see the knife coming." Lorenzo grabbed Sergio by the throat, slamming him against the floor-to-ceiling window. The glass shuddered but didn't break. "The only knife anyone needs to worry about is the one I'm going to bury in your spine if you don't tell me where to find Hawk. Go to hell. I'll see you there first." Lorenzo's grip tightened. Sergio's face turned red, then purple. His hands clawed at Lorenzo's arm, but it was like trying to move stone. "Lorenzo!" Franco's voice held a warning. "We need him alive. He's the only lead we have to Hawk." For a terrible moment, I thought Lorenzo wouldn't stop. That I'd watch him kill his own cousin with his bare hands, that I'd see the wolf fully unleashed, no humanity left. Then Lorenzo released him. Sergio collapsed to the floor, gasping and coughing. "Take him," Lorenzo said to Franco. "Secure location. Make sure he's comfortable. And call our friend at the police department. I want this building searched. Every file, every computer, every piece of paper. If there's any connection to Hawk here, I want it found." Franco made a call. Within minutes, more of Lorenzo's men arrived. Silent, efficient, professional. They hauled Sergio to his feet and dragged him toward the elevator. His security didn't move, didn't try to help their employer. They understood the new reality. Lorenzo had won this round. As Sergio was being taken away, he caught sight of me pressed against the wall. His bloody smile was venomous. "That your new weakness, Lorenzo? That skinny little bartender? Hawk's going to love hearing about her." Lorenzo backhanded him casually, almost lazily. Sergio's head snapped to the side. "She's none of your concern. Nothing is your concern anymore except surviving the next few days." After they were gone, the office felt cavernous, empty. Lorenzo stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. His hands clenched into fists. His shoulders were rigid with tension. I approached slowly, unsure if I should speak. The violence I just witnessed, quick, efficient, terrifying, played on repeat in my mind. This was who he really was. Not the thoughtful man reading poetry in his library. Not the strategist analyzing financial records. This was the wolf. "Are you afraid of me now?" he asked without turning. The honest answer was yes. But it was more complicated than simple fear. "I'm afraid of what you're capable of," I said carefully. "But I'm not afraid of you. Not entirely." He turned then, and I saw something in his face I hadn't expected. Not triumph or satisfaction at having bested his cousin, but weariness, sadness even. "Sergio was right about one thing," he said. "I have changed. My father would have killed him the moment he walked through that door. No questions, no offers of mercy. Just blood and certainty." "Why didn't you?" "Because I hoped I was wrong. Because he's family. And I remember what he was before ambition poisoned him. We were close once when we were boys. Before this life twisted us into whatever we are now." He walked toward me, stopping close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his gray eyes. "And because you were watching. I didn't want you to see me become the monster everyone believes I am." The confession stunned me. This fearsome man, this wolf, cared what I thought. Cared enough to show restraint when every instinct probably screamed for blood. "You're not a monster," I whispered. "Yes, I am. I just happen to be one with a conscience that won't let me sleep at night." His hand came up, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. "You make me want to be better than what I am. That's dangerous, Sasha. For both of us." "Why?" "Because wanting to be better means having something to lose. And in this world, the moment you have something precious, someone will try to take it from you." His eyes searched mine. "Sergio just declared war. Not just on me but on everyone I care about. He'll tell Hawk about you. And Hawk will see you as a weapon to use against me." Fear coiled in my stomach. "So what do? We find Hawk first. We end this before it escalates." He dropped his hand, stepping back. "But first we make sure you're safe. Really safe. Not just locked in a penthouse, but invisible again. Unreachable." "How?" He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to let you leave." My heart lurched. "What?" "Not forever. Not yet. But we need to make it look like you've disappeared. Like you've run from me, from all of this. We need Hawk to think you're no longer under my protection, that you're vulnerable. And then when he comes for you, and he will, we'll be ready. You want to use me as bait. I want to give you a chance at a real life when this is over. But yes, if Hawk thinks you're accessible, he'll make a move. He'll have to cover his tracks. And when he does, we'll have him." It was insane. Reckless. Suicidal even. But it was also the first time Lorenzo had offered me a choice. Real one. "If I do this," I said slowly, "if I help you catch Hawk, what happens after? Do I really get to leave? To go back to being invisible?" He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his expression that made my breath catch. Longing. Regret. Hunger. "If that's what you want," he said quietly. "Yes, you'll have your freedom. Your life back. I'll make sure of it. And if I want something else?" The question hung between us, loaded with meaning. His eyes darkened, and I saw him struggle with the answer. "Then we'll figure it out together. After this is done. After you're safe." He held out his hand. "Do we have a deal, little ghost?" I looked at his outstretched hand. At the man who'd kidnapped me, protected me, shown me his library and his violence in equal measure. The man who read love sonnets and snapped necks with the same hands. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong and absolutely certain. "Then let's end this," he said. "One way or another." Chapter 4. The Wolf's Library. The plan was simple in theory, terrifying in practice. I would escape. Lorenzo's people would stage it to look authentic. A moment of distraction, a door left unlocked, security footage showing me fleeing the penthouse in the early morning hours. I'd go to a safe house on the outskirts of the city, a place owned by one of Lorenzo's shell corporations, far enough from his known properties to seem like genuine refuge. And then we'd wait for Hawk to come for me. But we had 3 days before the trap would be set. 3 days for Lorenzo to put all the pieces in place, to ensure that when Hawk made his move, it would be his last. 3 days that I would spend in the penthouse, in the strange liminal space between captivity and something else. The night after the confrontation with Sergio, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw violence. Lorenzo's fist connecting with his cousin's jaw, the cold efficiency in his eyes, the way he'd gripped Sergio's throat like he was considering ending a life with the same thought most people gave to swatting a fly. At 2 in the morning, I gave up and wandered to the library. I'd spent hours here over the past weeks, but always during the day. At night, it was different. Shadows pooling in the corners, the city lights filtering through the tall windows creating strange patterns on the spines of books. The spiral staircase cast twisted shadows like a DNA helix made of iron. I climbed to the second level, to the reading nook with a leather chair and the small desk. The book of Italian sonnets was still there, exactly where I'd left it days ago. I picked it up, letting it fall open to the marked page. L'amor mio è come febbre, bramando ancora. My love is like a fever, longing still, a voice said from behind me. I spun around, the book clutched to my chest. Lorenzo stood at the top of the spiral staircase, dressed in dark pajama pants and a t-shirt, the most casual I'd ever seen him. His hair was disheveled, his feet bare. He looked younger somehow, more human. I didn't hear you come in, I said, my heart still racing. I know. You were too focused on the words. He moved closer, his eyes on the book in my hands. My mother used to read that sonnet to me when I was a boy, before she understood what my father really was. Before she learned that love like fever only leads to burning. What happened to her? She left when I was 12. Took my younger sister and disappeared in the middle of the night. My father hunted for her for years, but she was smarter than he gave her credit for. She knew how to become invisible. His gaze shifted to me. Like you. Did you ever find her? No. I stopped looking after my father died. I realized she was probably happier not being found. Happier not having to see what I'd become. He gestured to the book. She left that behind. It's one of the few things of hers I still have. I looked down at the sonnets, understanding them differently now. This wasn't just poetry. It was a relic. A memory of the woman who'd loved him before he became the wolf. Why did you mark this one? Yes. This particular sonnet. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he took the book from my hands, his fingers brushing mine in the exchange. He read aloud, his voice low and surprisingly lyrical. L'amor mio è come febbre, bramando ancora per circe più effedurare la malatia, nutrendo su circe alimenta la mia infermità, Illinois mio desiderio incerto che non conoscura. He looked up at me. Do you know what it means? The full verse. My love is like a fever, longing still for that which makes the disease endure, feeding on that which sustains my sickness, my uncertain desire that knows no cure. Pause. It's about destructive love. Love that consumes rather than heals. My mother circled it the day before she left. I found the book on my bed with a note that said, don't become your father. Don't let love make you sick. His smile was bitter. I've spent my entire adult life trying to follow her advice. Keeping distance. Keeping control. Never letting anyone close enough to become a fever. Until the word hung between us, heavy with implication. Until a ghost saved my life and made me realize that some fevers are worth the burn. He set the book down on the desk and stepped closer. You should hate me, Sasha. You should be planning your escape for real, not as part of some trap. I've taken your freedom, put you in danger, made you complicit in violence. By every measure, I'm the villain in your story. Then why don't I whispered. Because you recognize the same sickness in yourself. The fever of wanting something you know will destroy you, but being unable to turn away. His hand came up to my face, fingers tracing the line of my jaw with aching gentleness. We're both burning, little ghost. The question is whether we burn together or burn each other to ash. I should have stepped back. Should have reminded myself, that this was Stockholm Syndrome, trauma bonding, the psychological prison as dangerous as the physical one. But I didn't move. 'Cause he was right. Some part of me had been burning since the moment his winter-gray eyes found mine across the bar. Since he'd wrapped his hand around my wrist and called me little ghost, like he was naming something he intended to keep. I'm afraid, I admitted. Good. Fear means you're smart enough to understand what this is. What we are. His thumb brushed across my lower lip. I'm afraid too. Of what I feel when I look at you. Of what I do to keep you safe. Of how easily I could become the monster my father was, if someone tried to take you from me. Lorenzo. Shoo. He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. We don't have to decide anything tonight. We don't have to name this thing between us. We just have to survive the next few days. After that, when Hawk is dead and you're safe, we can figure out what comes next. But his hands were sliding into my hair, tilting my face up to his. And mine were gripping his t-shirt, pulling him closer. We were both lying and we both knew it. We'd already decided. When his lips met mine, it wasn't the violent claiming I'd half expected. It was soft, questioning, as if he were learning the shape of my mouth through touch. As if he had all the time in the world and wanted to memorize every detail. I responded in kind, my hands sliding up his chest to his shoulders, feeling the hard muscle beneath warm skin. He tasted like whiskey and something darker, more complex, like smoke and cedar and danger. The kiss deepened gradually. Heat building between us like a slow-burning fire. His hands tightened in my hair, angling my head to take the kiss deeper. I made a sound low in my throat, and I felt him smile against my mouth. Careful, he murmured, his lips trailing to my jaw, down the column of my throat. I'm trying to be gentleman. Trying to give you time to think, to be sure. I'm sure. The words came out breathless, desperate. I've been sure since you grabbed my wrist in that bar. Since you looked at me like I mattered. Like I was real. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. His own darkened with want and something fiercer. You are real. You're the most real thing in my life. Everything else is theater, performance, the role I play to survive. But with you. He cupped my face in both hands. With you I get to be Lorenzo. Just a man. Not the wolf. Show me, I whispered. Show me who you are when the mask comes off. Something broke in his expression, the last wall crumbling. He kissed me again, harder now, with purpose and hunger. His hands slid down my body, tracing curves through the thin fabric of my sleep clothes. Every touch left fire in its wake. We moved together toward the leather chair, a tangle of limbs and desperate breathing. He sat, pulling me onto his lap so I straddled him, my legs on either side of his hips. The intimacy of the position made my breath hitch. Tell me to stop, he said, his voice rough. Tell me this is wrong, that you're not ready, that I'm taking advantage. I kissed him to shut him up. Poured every complicated emotion I'd been feeling into that kiss. The fear and the desire, the anger at my captivity and the gratitude for his protection, the logical part of my brain screaming danger and the illogical part that felt safer in his arms than anywhere else in the world. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Stay with me tonight, he said. Not a command. Request. Not for this. Me hold you. Let me pretend for a few hours that you're mine by choice, not by circumstance. It was the most vulnerable thing he'd said to me. This powerful, dangerous man asking for something as simple as my presence. Okay, I whispered. He stood, lifting me with him as if I weighed nothing. I wrapped my arms around his neck, my face buried against his shoulder as he carried me down the spiral staircase, through the silent penthouse to his bedroom. I'd never been in his room before. It was sparse, masculine, dark wood furniture, a massive bed with charcoal gray linens, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the sleeping city. No personal effects, no photos, nothing that revealed the man who lived here. Except on the nightstand, I saw a single photograph in a simple frame. A woman with dark hair and warm eyes, holding 2 children, a boy of about 10 and a girl who couldn't have been more than 6. The boy had Lorenzo's features, but his eyes were unguarded, innocent. Before the world had taught him to be the wolf. "Your mother and sister," I said softly. "The last picture taken before she left. She looks happy there, doesn't she? Like she didn't know yet what was coming." He set me down on the edge of the bed. "I keep it to remind myself that happiness is possible, that people can escape, that sometimes leaving is the strongest choice you can make. Is that why you're letting me go? After this is over?" He knelt in front of me, his hands on my knees, his eyes searching mine. "I'm letting you go because you deserve the choice. Because forcing you to stay would make me exactly like my father, a man who kept the things he loved in cages and called it protection." His jaw tightened. "But I won't lie and say it won't destroy me to watch you leave." I reached out, running my fingers through his hair. He closed his eyes, leaning into the touch like a wolf accepting gentle hands for the first time. "Come to bed," I said. "We'll worry about leaving tomorrow." He rose, shedding his t-shirt and revealing a body that bore the evidence of his life. Scars mapping violence survived. He climbed into bed beside me, pulling me against his chest, my back to his front. His arm wrapped around my waist, holding me close but not constraining. "Tell me something true," he murmured against my hair. "Something you've never told anyone." I was quiet for a moment, feeling the steady beat of his heart against my back. "I'm tired of being invisible. I've spent 6 years being no one, being nothing, just trying to survive. And it's exhausting. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to just be seen, to matter to someone, to have a life that's more than just enduring." His arm tightened around me. "You matter to me. You're the only thing that's mattered in longer than I can remember. Now you tell me something true." He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I'm terrified that when you really see me, not the man reading poetry, not the protector keeping you safe, but the monster who does terrible things to maintain power, you'll look at me the way my mother looked at my father the day she left. Like I'm a stranger wearing a familiar face. Like I'm something to be escaped." I turned in his arms, facing him in the darkness. His eyes were shadows, but I could feel the vulnerability radiating from him. "I've already seen you," I said. "I've seen you be gentle and violent, strategic and impulsive, cruel and merciful. I've seen all of it, Lorenzo. And I'm still here. For now." "For now," I agreed. "But now is all we have. Tomorrow you might be killed by Hawk's assassin. I might be shot trying to escape. The safe house might be compromised. We might not survive the week." I pressed my palm against his cheek. "So let's stop pretending we have forever to figure this out. Let's just have tonight." He kissed me then, slow and deep and heartbreaking. His hands mapped my body with reverent care, learning every curve, every response. We shed clothes in the darkness, skin finding skin. Heat building between us with inevitable force. When he finally entered me, it was with aching slowness, giving me time to adjust, to accept, to yield. His eyes never left mine, even in the darkness. He watched my face with that same intense focus he gave everything, as if committing every expression to memory. We moved together in the silence of his bedroom, the city lights painting patterns on our skin. There was no violence in it, no desperate claiming. Just 2 people trying to find connection in a world that had taught them both to be alone. After, when we lay tangled together, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my shoulder, he spoke into the darkness. "When I was 17, my father took me to an execution. A man who'd betrayed the family. He made me watch as they tortured him for hours before finally killing him. Afterward, he asked me what I'd learned. Lorenzo's voice was distant, hollow. I said I'd learned that betrayal has consequences. He laughed and said, "No. You learned that love is the most dangerous weakness you can have. That man betrayed us because he loved his daughter more than he feared us. Love made him weak, and weakness got him killed." I turned in his arms to face him. "What are you telling me?" "I'm telling you that my father was wrong. Love isn't weakness. It's the only thing that makes any of this. The violence, the darkness, the impossible choices. It's the only thing that makes it bearable." His hand cupped my face. "I'm telling you that I'm falling in love with you, Sasha Greaves. And it terrifies me more than any enemy ever has." My breath caught. "Lorenzo. You don't have to say it back. I don't expect you to. Stockholm Syndrome, trauma bonding, whatever psychological term you want to use to explain this away. I understand. But I needed you to know. Before we walk into whatever's coming, I needed you to know that you matter. That you've mattered since the moment you slid that napkin across the bar." Tears stung my eyes. "I don't know what I feel. I don't know if what I'm feeling is real or just survival instinct telling me to attach to my captor. I don't know if I'm falling in love with you or just falling apart. That's okay. We'll figure it out together. Or we won't, and you'll leave, and I'll let you because that's what love actually is. Wanting someone to be free, even if their freedom takes them away from you." I kissed him, tasting salt from my own tears. "Ask me again in a week. When this is over. When I've had time away from you to think clearly. If I come back, if I choose to come back, then you'll know it's real. And if you don't, then at least we'll both know I was strong enough to walk away." He held me tighter, as if he could stop time through sheer force of will. "Promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll survive. Whatever happens with Hawk, whatever trap we're walking into. Promise me you'll do whatever it takes to survive. Run if you have to. Forget about me, forget about the plan. Just live. I promise if you promise the same. Deal." He kissed my forehead, my temples, my closed eyelids. "Now sleep. We have 3 days before you become bait. Let's not waste them." I closed my eyes, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, feeling safer and more endangered than I'd ever felt in my life. Somewhere in the darkness, Silas Hawke was planning his next move. Sergio was locked in a secure location, probably already telling his captors whatever they wanted to hear. And in 3 days, I would walk into the lion's den with nothing but a tracking device and the hope that Lorenzo could reach me before Hawke killed me. But tonight, wrapped in the arms of the wolf, I let myself believe we might actually survive this. I let myself believe in happy endings, even though everything I'd learned about this world said they didn't exist. The fever was burning through both of us now. The question was whether we'd survive the fire. The next morning I woke alone. Lorenzo was gone, but he'd left a note on his pillow in that precise handwriting. "Franco is making breakfast. We need to discuss the details of your escape. Also, I found something in Sergio's files you need to see. Something about your father." My blood ran cold. I dressed quickly and found them in the dining room. Franco with his tablet, Lorenzo with coffee and an expression I couldn't read. "What did you find?" I asked without preamble. Lorenzo slid a folder across the table. "Sergio kept files on anyone he thought might be useful leverage. He had one on you. It includes details about your father's death that weren't in the police report." My hand shook as I opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Surveillance shots of my father in the weeks before his death. Him meeting with men I didn't recognize. Him looking over his shoulder, paranoid, afraid. And then, at the bottom of the stack, a photograph that made my breath stop. My father, sitting across a cafe table from a man whose face was partially obscured by shadow. A man wearing a ring on his right pinky finger. "That's Hawke," Lorenzo said quietly. "Your father met with Silas Hawke 2 weeks before he died." The room spun. "No, that's not. He was in witness protection. He wouldn't have. There's more." Franco pulled up something on his tablet. "We've been digging into your father's testimony against the Castellanos. The information he gave the feds, it was incomplete. Carefully incomplete. He gave them enough to take down the competition but kept certain operations protected. What operations? Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Import routes. Specifically, the routes Hawk uses to move his contracts internationally. Your father wasn't trying to escape the life, Sasha. He was trying to eliminate his competition and consolidate power. The Castellanos figured it out and had him killed. But not before he made a deal with Hawk, protection for his daughter in exchange for continued access to those routes. I sank into a chair, the folder slipping from my nerveless fingers. You're saying my father made a deal with the man who's now trying to kill you? The man we're about to use me as bait to catch? I'm saying your father was deeper in this world than you knew. And Hawk has a file on you going back 6 years. He's been watching you, Sasha. Making sure his investment in your father's protection was worth the cost. And now I've interfered in his latest contract, I finished, feeling sick. I saved you, which cost him his fee from Sergio. He's not just coming after me because I'm a witness. He's coming after me because I owe him a debt. My father's debt. Yes. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. Everything I'd believed about my father, that he'd tried to do the right thing, that he'd been a victim of the life he'd chosen, it was a lie. He'd been a player, not a pawn. And his last play had been to sell my freedom to a ghost I'd never even known existed. So what do we do? Asked, my voice hollow. Lorenzo reached across the table, taking my hand. We do what we planned. We use you as bait, we catch Hawk, and we end this. But now we know he'll come personally. He'll want to collect your father's debt face to face. Which means we'll actually get a shot at him. I looked up at Lorenzo, at Franco, at the life I'd stumbled into. When do we start? Lorenzo's smile was sharp, predatory. Tomorrow night. We stage your escape. Franco will leak information about where you've gone, the safe house on Miller Road. Hawk will send someone to verify it's really you. And when he's satisfied, he'll come himself. And then we'll show him what happens when someone threatens what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered me. Instead, it made me feel something I hadn't felt in 6 years. Protected. Valued. Worth fighting for. Even if it was an illusion born of trauma and circumstance, I'd hold on to it for as long as I could. Because in 3 days I might be dead. And if I was going to die, at least I'd die knowing someone had cared enough to avenge me. Chapter 5. The Betrayer's Echo. The safe house was a lie wrapped in peeling paint and broken dreams. It sat at the end of Miller Road, a dead-end street in a neighborhood that Chicago's economic boom had forgotten. The house itself was a 2-story colonial that had probably been charming once, maybe 40 years ago. Now it wore decay like a second skin, shutters hanging crooked, front steps cracked, a yard overgrown with weeds that pushed through what was left of a chain-link fence. Perfect, in other words, for someone trying to hide. The inside is better, Franco said as we pulled up in an unmarked sedan. It was late afternoon, the sun already beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the empty street. Clean. Secure. We've got cameras on every approach, motion sensors, reinforced doors. You'll be safe here. I looked at the house and felt nothing but dread. How long? 2 days, maybe 3. Hawk will need time to verify your location to plan his approach. Franco glanced at Lorenzo in the rearview mirror. She doesn't have to do this. We can find another way. There is no other way, Lorenzo said, his voice flat. He'd been distant all day, his mask firmly in place. The man who'd held me last night, who'd whispered confessions in the dark. He was locked away behind the wolf's cold eyes. Hawk won't expose himself for anyone but her. She's the key. He was right and I hated him for it. We went inside. The interior was indeed better, furnished like a temporary rental, everything functional but impersonal. A living room with worn furniture, a kitchen with basic supplies, a bedroom upstairs with blackout curtains, and a bed that looked more comfortable than it had any right to be. Lorenzo's men were already there, checking equipment, running final tests. Cale gave me a nod that might have been reassuring if his scar didn't make him look perpetually murderous. Another man, younger, wiry, with nervous energy, was setting up laptops on the kitchen table. Marcus, Lorenzo introduced him. Communications. You'll have a panic button on you at all times. Press it and we'll be here in under 3 minutes. Marcus will be monitoring all feeds 24/7. You won't be alone. Just isolated, I said. Just protected. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Can I speak to you? Upstairs. I followed him to the bedroom. He closed the door behind us and for a moment just stood there. His back to me, tension radiating from every line of his body. I don't like this, he finally said. You're the one who planned it. I know. He turned and I saw cracks in his control. Fear, anger, something deeper. But that was before. He stopped himself. Before what? Before you became more than an asset. More than a witness. He crossed to me in 3 strides, his hands framing my face. Before I realized I can't lose you. You don't have me to lose, I said, but my voice wavered. Don't I? His thumb stroked my cheek. You said to ask you again in a week. To ask when you'd had time away from me, time to think clearly. Well, here's your chance. This safe house, it's not just bait for Hawk. It's your test. Time away from me. Time to figure out if what you feel is real or just survival instinct. Understood then. This wasn't just about catching Hawk. This was Lorenzo giving me what I'd asked for: space, distance, a chance to choose freely. And if I decide to run for real? Yes. If I use this opportunity to disappear? Pain flashed across his face, quickly masked. Then you run. I won't stop you. I'll make sure Hawk never finds you, and you can have the life you wanted. Invisible. Safe. You'd let me go. Just like that. No, not just like that. It would destroy me. But I'd do it anyway because that's what my mother taught me. That love means wanting someone's freedom more than you want their presence. He leaned his forehead against mine. So when this is over, you choose. Stay or go. But know that either way you'll always be safe. I'll make sure of it. I kissed him, putting everything I couldn't say into it. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. We should go, Franco called from downstairs. Surveillance indicates increased activity in Sergio's network. Hawk might already be moving. Lorenzo's hands dropped from my face. The mask slid back into place. Remember, panic button if anything feels wrong. Don't try to be brave. Don't try to fight. Just press it and we'll come. What if you're not fast enough? His eyes went cold, predatory. Then Hawk will learn what happens when you threaten what's mine. I'll burn this entire city to ash to avenge you. It should have sounded like hyperbole. Didn't. The first night alone was the hardest. I sat in the living room with all the lights off, watching headlights occasionally sweep past on the distant main road. The house creaked and settled around me, every sound a potential threat. My hand kept drifting to the panic button, a small device disguised as a pendant on a chain around my neck. Press it and Lorenzo would come. Press it and this would all be over. But Hawk wouldn't show himself for a false alarm. Had to wait. Had to be patient. Had to be bait. Around midnight my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Are you afraid? My heart stopped. I looked at the phone, then at the windows. Someone was watching. Someone knew I was here. Another text, you should be. Your father was afraid too at the end. He begged, you know. Offered me everything, money, routes, you. Especially you. Take my daughter, he said. Just let me live. Guess which one I chose. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. This was Hawk. Had to be. He was toying with me, getting inside my head before he struck. I typed back. My father was a coward. Not. 3 dots appeared, then we'll see. The phone went dead. I sat in the darkness, adrenaline singing through my veins, and realized something crucial. I was angry. Not afraid, angry. Angry at my father for his lies, for his deals, for selling me to a monster before I even knew I'd been bought. Angry at Hawk for stalking me like prey. Angry at this entire world that turned people into commodities and violence into currency. And angry at myself for being attracted to a man who embodied everything I should have been running from. But I wasn't running. Not anymore. I'd stopped being invisible the moment I slid that napkin across the bar. Now I was going to finish what I'd started. I picked up the phone and called Lorenzo. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong? He contacted me. He's watching the house. Are you safe? Do you need? I'm fine. I just wanted to hear your voice. It was true and it surprised me. Tell me something. Anything. Something real. Silence. Then, when I was 8, my father gave me a puppy. I named him Shadow. He was the only thing I loved that couldn't be used against me, or so I thought. When I was 10, I disobeyed an order. My father shot Shadow in front of me and said, "This is what love costs in our world. Remember it." My throat tightened. Lorenzo, I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something. I've spent my entire life being taught that love is weakness, that caring makes you vulnerable. But you've made me realize that maybe vulnerability is its own kind of strength. Maybe admitting you have something to lose is braver than pretending you have nothing. Why are you telling me this now? Because Hawk is going to try to break you. He's going to tell you things about your father, about me, about this world. And I need you to remember that whatever he says, whatever truth or lies he uses, you're not alone. You're not just bait. He stopped. I'm what? You're everything I didn't know I was missing. I closed my eyes, tears burning behind the lids. When this is over, when I have time to think, to be away from you, ask me again how I feel. Ask me if what I feel is real. I will. I promise. Oz. Get some rest. We're watching. You're safe. He hung up. I sat in the darkness, the phone warm in my hand, and tried to believe him. The second day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Marcus checked in every few hours, his voice crackling through the communication device they'd left me. Perimeter clear. No movement. All feeds nominal. Franco called once. Sergio's talking. Giving us names, operations, everything. Turns out loyalty doesn't last long when you're facing the rest of your life in a cell. He confirmed Hawk operates out of at least 3 locations. A theater, an old library, and a private club. We're running surveillance on all of them. Lorenzo didn't call. I told myself it was because he was busy, because he was coordinating the operation, because he was being smart and maintaining distance. I tried not to think about the alternative, that he was already distancing himself emotionally, preparing for the possibility that I'd choose to leave when this was over. That evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, I saw it. A car, dark and expensive, driving slowly past the house. Didn't stop, didn't slow down more than normal. But I saw the driver's face turn toward the windows, saw the way he noted every detail. Reconnaissance. I pressed the talk button on the communication device. Marcus. Someone just cased the house. Dark sedan, no plates visible. We saw it. Running facial recognition now. Oz. Boss wants to know if you're ready to pull out. No. This is what we wanted. Tell him I'm staying. Copy that. An hour later Marcus came back on. Facial recognition hit. Driver is Anton Volsky, known associate of Hawk's. Former Spetsnaz. Expert in close quarters combat and interrogation. If Hawk sends him, it won't be pleasant. How long until he comes back? Tonight. Maybe tomorrow. Hawk will want to verify you're alone, that it's not a trap. But it is a trap. Yeah. Let's hope he doesn't figure that out until it's too late. I spent the rest of the evening preparing. I found the knife Lorenzo had given me weeks ago, still in my bag from that night at Sergio's office. I placed it under the couch cushion in the living room, within easy reach. I tested the panic button 3 times, making sure it worked. And I thought about my father. The texts from Hawk kept playing in my mind, Take my daughter, he said. Just let me live. Had he really? Had my father really offered me up to save himself? Part of me wanted to believe it was a lie, Hawk's manipulation. But I'd lived with my father. I'd seen his fear, his desperation to survive. I'd seen him look over his shoulder every day for 6 years, waiting for death to catch up. And I knew with sick certainty that Hawk was probably telling the truth. My father had sold me. And I'd spent 6 years mourning a man who'd seen me as currency, not family. The anger that realization sparked was a living thing, hot and fierce. It burned away the last of my innocence, the last of my naivety about this world. When Hawk came, I wouldn't be a frightened girl playing bait. I'd be a woman with nothing left to lose. He came at 2 a.m. I was dozing on the couch when I heard it, the soft scrape of metal on metal. The front door lock being picked. My hand went to the panic button. One press and Lorenzo would come. But I didn't press it. I wanted to see Hawk's face. Wanted to hear his voice. Wanted to look into the eyes of the man who'd killed my father and stalked me for 6 years. The door opened silently. A shadow slipped inside, large and lethal. Anton Volkov. He moved like a predator, every step calculated. He found me on the couch, my eyes open, watching him. "You're not surprised," he said in accented English. "Smart girl. I've been waiting." My hand was on the panic button, finger on the trigger. "Where's Hawk?" "Watching. He wants to see if you're alone. If this is real or trap." Anton's smile was cruel. "I think trap. But he wants to be sure, so I make sure." "You understand." "Perfectly." He moved toward me. Pressed the button. Anton's smile widened. "Already? I haven't even touched you yet. You won't get the chance." The windows exploded inward. Lorenzo came through the front door like an avenging angel, Franco through the back, Kale through a side window. They moved with lethal synchronization, weapons drawn, every movement precise. Anton spun, going for his gun. He was fast, Spetsnaz fast. Lorenzo was faster. The shot was deafening in the small room. Anton dropped, his gun clattering across the floor. He wasn't dead. Lorenzo had shot him in the shoulder, deliberately non-lethal. "Where is he?" Lorenzo's voice was ice and death. "Where's Hawk?" Anton laughed, blood bubbling from his lips. "You think I tell you? You think I betray him? He kill me slower than you will." "I doubt that." Lorenzo looked at Franco. "We have about 30 seconds before Hawk realizes his man failed. He'll run. Find him." Franco was already moving, barking orders into his phone. Kale hauled Anton up, ignoring the man's grunt of pain. Lorenzo crossed to me in 2 strides. His hands on my face, my shoulders, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did he touch you?" "I'm fine." I pressed the button as soon as he came in. "Good. Good." He pulled me against his chest, and I felt him shaking. "Christ, Sasha. When I saw him reach for you. But you were here. Like you promised." I pulled back to look at his face. "Now what?" "Now we make Anton tell us where Hawk is. And then." His expression went cold, inhuman. "We end this." Anton laughed again, a wet, rattling sound. "Is too late. He already knows. He watches, he sees, he runs. You never catch him. Hawk is ghost like girl. Ghosts don't get caught." Lorenzo's smile was terrible. "You'd be surprised what you can catch if you're patient enough." He turned to Kale. "Take him to the secure location. The same one where we're keeping Sergio. Let's see if family reunion loosens anyone's tongue." "Sergio doesn't know where Hawk is," Anton gasped. "Sergio is fool. He hired Hawk, but he never met him. I never met him. No one meets Hawk. He send instructions, we follow. That's how he stays alive. Then how do you get paid?" "Dead drop. Different location every time. He texts coordinates, we pick up payment. Is untraceable." Lorenzo looked at Franco, who was scrolling through something on his phone. "Boss, we've got something." Traffic cam caught a vehicle leaving the area right after we breached. High-end sedan, diplomatic plates. Heading toward the downtown theater district. The Orpheum, I said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at me. Franco said Hawk operates out of 3 locations. A theater, a library, and a private club. The Orpheum is in the theater district. He's been there before. Lorenzo's eyes sharpened. When? When you failed to catch him the first time during that silent film screening. He used it as neutral ground before. Maybe he considers it safe. Or maybe he's using it as an exit route, Franco said. The Orpheum has access to the old underground tunnels, Prohibition-era passageways that connect to half the buildings downtown. If he gets into those tunnels, he disappears for good. Lorenzo was already moving toward the door. How long to get there? 15 minutes if we push it. Then we push it. Kel, take Anton. Marcus, you stay with Sasha. No. I grabbed Lorenzo's arm. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. I've been in danger since the moment I saved your life. I'm not hiding anymore, Lorenzo. I'm not being invisible. If we're ending this, I'm there when it ends. His jaw worked. I saw the war in his eyes. The need to protect me versus the understanding that I was right, that I'd earned this. Fine, he finally said. But you stay back. You don't engage. You're a witness, not a soldier. Understood. Understood. He kissed me, hard and fast and desperate. When this is over, we're going to have a very long conversation about your definition of staying safe. I look forward to it. We ran for the cars. The Orpheum Theater rose from the downtown streets like a monument to a forgotten era. All Art Deco grandeur and faded glory. It was closed at this hour, dark except for a single light above the employee entrance. Lorenzo's team assembled in the shadows across the street. 8 men total, all armed, all moving with the silent efficiency of a well-trained unit. 2 entry points, Franco said, pulling up a blueprint on his phone. Front doors, sealed from inside. Employee entrance, likely how Hawk got in. And the old coal chute in the alley, leads directly to the basement and the tunnel access. We split up, Lorenzo decided. Franco, take 4 men through the employee entrance. I'll take the coal chute with the rest. Sasha stays with me. He looked at me. You see him, you tell me. You don't engage, you don't try to be a hero. Clear. Clear. We moved. The coal chute was exactly as unpleasant as it sounded. A rusted metal slide leading down into darkness. Lorenzo went first, his weapon drawn, a flashlight mounted on it cutting through the black. I followed, my heart in my throat, trying not to think about what we'd find at the bottom. The basement was a maze of forgotten rooms. Old dressing areas, prop storage, costume racks covered in decades of dust. Everything smelled of mildew and age. And somewhere in this darkness, Silas Hawke was waiting. We moved through the basement, checking each room. Nothing. No sign of anyone. Then I heard it. A soft sound, barely audible. Like breathing but not quite. Like someone trying very hard to be silent. I touched Lorenzo's arm, pointed toward a door marked boiler room. He nodded, gesturing for his men to take positions. He tried the door unlocked. It swung open on well-oiled hinges. The room beyond was lit by a single bare bulb. And in that light, sitting calmly in a metal folding chair as if he'd been expecting us, was Silas Hawke. He was smaller than I'd imagined. Average height, thin build, with forgettable features and wire-rimmed glasses. He looked like an accountant or a librarian, someone you'd pass on the street and never remember. Which was, of course, exactly the point. Lorenzo Volkov, Hawke said. His voice pleasant, cultured. And the famous Miss Greaves. I'm honored you've come all this way for our meeting. This isn't a meeting, Lorenzo said. His gun trained on Hawke's chest. This is an ending. Is it? Hawke smiled. I wonder. You see, I've been in this business for 23 years. I've survived 5 different criminal empires, 3 federal investigations, and countless men who thought they could kill me. Do you know how? I don't care. You should. Because the secret is simple. I'm never where people think I am. Hawk stood slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. This isn't me, Lorenzo. This is a stand-in. A man who looks enough like me in bad light to pass. The real me. I left Chicago 3 hours ago. I'm already on a plane to somewhere you'll never find me. My blood ran cold. Lorenzo's expression didn't change. You're lying. Am I? Then shoot me. See what happens. See if the face beneath these glasses is the one you're expecting. See if killing me doesn't trigger a dozen failsafes that will destroy everything you've built. Hawk's smile widened. Or you could let me walk away. Let this operation stand down. And in 6 months, a year, we'll try again. Different city, different method. Because that's what I do, Lorenzo. I'm patient. I'm inevitable. And you can't protect her forever. He looked at me then, and his eyes were empty. Shark eyes. Your father understood that. He knew there's no escaping this world once you're in it. He tried to buy you time by making a deal with me. He failed, of course. But at least he tried. What will you do, I wonder, when Lorenzo realizes that keeping you alive makes him weak? When he has to choose between his empire and one girl who saw too much? Shut up, I said, my voice shaking. Truth hurts, doesn't it? Your father sold you to save himself. Lorenzo is doing the exact same thing, just with prettier words. He calls it protection. Call it possession. But the result is the same, you're not free. You'll never be free. Because once you matter to someone like him, you become a weapon they can use against him forever. Lorenzo moved so fast I barely saw it. His gun pressed against Hawk's forehead. Last chance. Tell me where you really are, or I paint this room with your stand-in's brain, and then I hunt down every person you've ever known until I find you. Hawk's smile never wavered. Do it. Pull the trigger. See what happens. For a frozen moment, no one breathed. Then Franco's voice crackled over the radio. Boss, we've got a problem. There's a bomb. Basement level, near the tunnel entrance. Professional job, motion triggered. If anyone moves. The world exploded. Chapter 6. The night of the kiss. The blast threw me backward, my ears ringing. The world reduced to a muted roar and swirling dust. I hit something hard, a wall maybe or a pipe, and crumpled to the ground. My lungs burned, desperate for air that was suddenly thick with concrete dust and smoke. Through the chaos I heard screaming, shouting, the groan of stressed metal and shifting debris. And then hands were on me, pulling me up, dragging me through the darkness. Sasha! Sasha, can you hear me? Lorenzo's voice, ragged and desperate. I tried to answer, but all that came out was a cough that tasted of blood and dust. My vision swam, doubled, slowly resolved into his face hovering over mine. Blood ran from a cut on his temple. His expensive suit was shredded, covered in gray powder. We have to move. The structure isn't stable. He hauled me to my feet, his arm around my waist, half carrying me toward a rectangle of lesser darkness that must have been a doorway. Behind us, the room where Hawk or his stand-in had been sitting was gone, replaced by a mountain of rubble. If anyone had been standing there when the bomb went off. Your men, I gasped out. Franco got them out. The motion trigger gave us maybe 3 seconds warning. Franco saw it, shouted, everyone ran. His grip tightened. Everyone but us. We were too far in. We stumbled through the ruined basement, following the sound of voices shouting our names. My ankle screamed with every step, twisted, maybe sprained, possibly broken. I couldn't tell through the adrenaline. We emerged through what had been the coal chute, now partially collapsed. Franco was there, his face streaked with soot, directing his men to check for survivors. The stand-in? Lorenzo asked. Dead. Crushed when the ceiling came down. We won't be able to ID the body for days, maybe weeks. Franco's expression was grim. Hawk planned this. The motion trigger, the placement of the bomb. He wanted to collapse that section of the basement specifically. To destroy evidence, To eliminate his stand-in, to send a message. What message? That he's untouchable. That we can't win. Lorenzo's hand was still on my waist, steadying me. Get Sasha to a hospital. I want her checked for. No. My voice came out stronger than I felt. No hospitals. Too exposed. Too many questions. I looked at Franco. You have a medic on call, don't you? Someone discreet. Franco glanced at Lorenzo, who nodded. Dr. Rosen. She's handled worse. I'll call her, have her meet us at the penthouse. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The explosion would bring police, fire department, federal investigators if they thought it was terrorism. We needed to be gone before they arrived. Move, Lorenzo ordered. Everyone out. Standard protocols. You were never here, you saw nothing. This was old gas lines, structural failure. Anything but what it actually was. His men dispersed like smoke, disappearing into the pre-dawn darkness with the practiced ease of people who'd vanished from crime scenes before. Lorenzo guided me toward the SUV, supporting most of my weight. Every step sent fire up my leg. I bit my lip to keep from crying out, tasting blood. I've got you, he murmured. Just a little further. I made it to the vehicle before my leg gave out completely. He caught me, lifting me into the back seat with surprising gentleness for a man who'd just survived an explosion. He climbed in beside me, pulling me against his chest as Cale drove us away from the chaos. You're hurt, I said, touching the cut on his temple. Superficial. You're the one who can't walk. I can walk. I just can't walk well. I tried to smile, but my face felt wrong, numb. Shock probably. Did we get anything? Any evidence of where Hawk really is? No. He's gone. The stand-in's phone was burner, probably already destroyed remotely. The tunnel entrance was collapsed in the blast. If there were any clues, they're buried under tons of rubble. His jaw tightened. He outplayed us. Again. So what do we do? I don't know. The admission seemed to cost him. I've never faced an enemy I couldn't find, couldn't touch. Hawk is a phantom. Every time I get close, he vanishes. Every move I make, he's 3 steps ahead. Because he has someone feeding him information, I said. Someone close to you. Someone who knew about tonight. Lorenzo's expression went cold. I've been thinking the same thing. The timing was too perfect. Hawk knew we were coming. Knew exactly where we'd be, how we'd approach. Who knew the plan? Franco. Oh, Marcus. My inner circle. He looked at me. And you. The implication hung between us. Ugly and necessary. You think I'm the leak, I said flatly. No. But I have to consider it. I have to consider everything. His hand came up to my face, thumb brushing across my cheek. Tell me I'm not wrong about you. Tell me this, what we have, is real and not some elaborate con to destroy me from the inside. And if I tell you it's real, would you believe me? I want to. God, I want to. His voice cracked. But my father's voice is in my head, reminding me that trust is how men like me get killed. That love is weakness. That anyone can be bought, including, especially, the ones who seem most loyal. I should have been angry. Should have been insulted that he'd even consider I could be working with Hawk. But I understood. In his world, paranoia wasn't a disorder. It was survival. I'm not the leak, I said quietly. But I understand why you have to ask. And I understand if you can't trust me anymore. If you want me gone after this. I don't want you gone. I want you safe. I want. He stopped, shaking his head. It doesn't matter what I want. What matters is ending this before anyone else gets hurt. The rest of the drive passed in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. The city was beginning to wake up around us. Early commuters, delivery trucks, the eternal churn of urban life. People going about their normal days, having no idea that beneath the surface, a war was being fought in shadows. Dr. Rosen was waiting when we arrived at the penthouse. She was older, maybe 60, with steel-gray hair and the kind of face that had seen everything and been surprised by none of it. She set up a makeshift examination area in Lorenzo's bedroom without comment. Her movements efficient and professional. "Ankles sprained, not broken," she announced after a thorough examination that left me gritting my teeth. "You'll need to stay off it for at least a week. Ice elevation, compression. I'll wrap it, but if the swelling doesn't go down in 48 hours, you need an X-ray. Proper one, at a hospital." "I'll make sure she follows orders," Lorenzo said from where he stood by the window. Dr. Rosen gave him a look that said she'd heard that before and didn't believe it. "You've got some bruised ribs, possible minor concussion. You need rest, Mr. Volkov. Actual rest. Not what you usually call rest." "Noted." She packed up her equipment, accepted the envelope Lorenzo handed her without counting the contents, and left with a final warning. "Take care of each other. You're both running on fumes and adrenaline. That only lasts so long before you crash." After she left, Lorenzo helped me to the bed. The sun was rising now, painting the room in shades of gold and amber. I should have been exhausted. I was exhausted. But my mind wouldn't stop racing. "We're missing something," I said. "Some piece of the puzzle. Hawk is always ahead of us because someone's feeding him information. But what if it's not someone in your organization?" Lorenzo turned from the window. "What do you mean? What if it's someone in law enforcement? Or the feds? Think about it. Hawk has survived for 23 years in this business. That doesn't happen without protection at high levels. What if he has someone on the inside feeding him information about police operations, federal investigations, and by extension, information about us?" Lorenzo's eyes sharpened. "When we moved against Sergio, when we planned the safe house operation, when we went to the Orpheum, every time there would have been official awareness. Surveillance requests, informant reports, all the ways law enforcement tracks organized crime. And if Hawk has access to those systems, he'd know everything we do almost as soon as we do it." Lorenzo pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "Franco, I need you to run a trace on anyone with database access to our files. FBI, DEA, Chicago PD. Anyone who's been monitoring our operations. Look for patterns of access, particularly right before major incidents." He hung up and crossed to the bed, sitting on the edge beside me. "That's brilliant. And terrifying. If Hawk has federal protection, if he's been operating as an asset or informant, then killing him becomes an international incident," I finished. "You can't just make him disappear. You'd have to expose him publicly, prove he's dirty, turn his own handlers against him. Which means we need evidence. Documentation. Something that proves he's been using his federal connections to facilitate murders." Lorenzo ran a hand through his hair, leaving it standing on end. "That's going to take time. Time we may not have." "Why? What's changed?" His expression went dark. "While you were being examined, I got a call. One of my legitimate businesses, a shipping company, was raided this morning. Federal agents, search warrants, the full show. They seized records going back 5 years. Looking for what? Connections to Sergio's operations. Proof that I knew about the illegal activities running through my company." He met my eyes. "They found something. A paper trail linking me directly to weapons shipments that went through Hawk's network." My blood went cold. "But you didn't know about those. Sergio must have been using your company without." "Doesn't matter what I knew or didn't know. The evidence exists. It has my signature on authorization forms, my credentials on shipping manifests." His smile was bitter. "Hawk didn't just outplay me tactically. He set me up legally. If this goes to trial, I'll spend the rest of my life in prison. And you, as a material witness who's been living with me, you'll be implicated too." The trap closed around us with perfect, terrible precision. Hawk hadn't needed to kill Lorenzo. He'd found a better way. Destroy him legally, eliminate his empire through the courts, and leave him alive to watch it all burn. "There has to be a way out," I said. The evidence has to be fabricated. We just need to prove it. With what? We have no access to federal databases, no way to examine the documents they seized. Even if we could prove forgery, the scandal alone would destroy me. My legitimate businesses would collapse. My criminal operations would be taken over by rivals. Everyone I've protected would be left vulnerable. He looked at me. Including you. I can take care of myself. Not against the people who'll come after you once I'm gone. You're a loose end, Sasha. You know too much about too many things. The only reason you're still alive is because I'm still powerful enough to protect you. Take that away and... Stop. I grabbed his hand. We're not giving up. There has to be something we can do. There is. He turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through mine. You can leave. Right now. Today. I'll give you a new identity, money, protection until you're established somewhere safe. Europe maybe. South America. Somewhere Hawk and everyone else will never think to look. And you. I'll fight this. Probably lose. Definitely lose. But at least you'll be safe. At least I'll know one good thing came out of this disaster. I saved you. The offer hung between us. Freedom. Safety. Everything I'd supposedly wanted when this started. And all I'd have to do was walk away from the man I'd fallen in love with. Because that's what this was, I realized. Love. Not Stockholm Syndrome, not trauma bonding. Real, complicated, probably doomed love for a man who read poetry and broke necks with equal ease. For the wolf who'd seen the ghost and decided she was worth protecting. No, I said. Sasha. No, I'm not leaving. I told you weeks ago. You don't get to warn me away after pulling me into this. We're in it together now. We either find a way out together, or we go down together. That's not. I kissed him to shut him up. Poured everything I felt into it, the fear and the certainty, the logical part of my brain screaming that this was suicide and the illogical part that didn't care. When we broke apart, his eyes were molten. You're insane. Probably. Or maybe I've just finally stopped being afraid. You should be afraid. I'm terrified. Of what? Of losing you. Of getting you killed. Of... He cupped my face in both hands. Of not being enough. Not strong enough. Not smart enough to protect you from what's coming. You don't have to be. We'll figure it out together. I pulled him down to me, ignoring the protest from my ribs. But first we need to rest. Like Dr. Rosen said. Actually rest. He stretched out beside me on the bed, careful not to jostle my ankle. His arm came around me, pulling me against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat steady and strong. Tell me something, I murmured. Something true. Something that has nothing to do with all this. He was quiet for a moment. Then, when I was 16, I wanted to be a teacher. History, specifically. I loved reading about empires rising and falling, about the patterns that repeated through time. I thought if I could teach people to recognize those patterns, maybe we could break the cycle. Maybe the world could be better. What happened? My father found out. He said teaching was for the weak, for people who couldn't do. He said Volkovs don't watch history, we make it. 6 months later he took me to my first execution. Told me this was my real education. Violence is the only history that matters. Power is the only lesson worth learning. Your father was wrong. Was he? Look at us. Look at what we've become. He was a monster, but he understood how the world really works. No. I turned in his arms, meeting his eyes. He understood how his world worked. But there are other ways to live. Other kinds of power. You showed me that when you gave Sergio a choice instead of just killing him. When you let Anthony live for his daughter's sake. When you offered to let me go even though it would destroy you. Those might have been mistakes. Weakness that will get us killed. Or they were the only things that make us human instead of monsters. I touched his face. Your mother was right, Lorenzo. Don't become your father. Don't let this world make you forget that there are things worth more than power and survival. Like what? Like love. Like choosing to be vulnerable because the alternative is being alone. Like, I kissed him softly. Like this. Right here. Right now. Two people who should hate each other choosing instead to care. His arms tightened around me. When did you get so wise? Probably around the same time you got so terrified. We're trading roles. You're the one afraid, I'm the one who's sure. Sure of what? That whatever happens, I'm glad I saved your life that night. I'm glad I wrote that napkin. Because if I hadn't, I never would have known that ghosts and wolves could fall in love. He kissed me then, slow and deep and heartbreaking. His hand slid into my hair, cradling my head like I was something precious, breakable. The kiss tasted of desperation and hope in equal measure. I love you, he whispered against my lips. God help me, I love you. And I have no idea how to keep you alive. We'll figure it out. Together. I pulled him closer, despite the pain in my ribs, despite the fear coiling in my stomach. But right now, just hold me. Pretend for a few hours that we're normal people who can have a normal life. We're not normal people. I know. But we can pretend. So we did. We lay tangled together in his bed as the sun climbed higher, as the city woke fully around us, as the clock ticked down toward whatever ending Hawk had planned for us. And for those stolen hours we pretended. We pretended we were just Lorenzo and Sasha. Not the wolf and the ghost. Not the crime lord and the witness. Just two people who'd found each other against impossible odds and decided that maybe, just maybe, love was worth burning for. The fever had us both now. And neither of us wanted a cure. I woke to the sound of shouting. Lorenzo was already out of bed, pulling on clothes, his phone pressed to his ear. How long ago? And you're sure? Fuck. Okay. Lock it down. No one in or out until I get there. He hung up and turned to me, his expression grim. Franco found the leak. I sat up, ignoring my protesting ribs. Who? Marcus, the communications specialist. Franco tracked his access logs. He's been feeding information to an offshore account linked to Hawk's network for the past 3 months. Every operation we planned, every move we made, Marcus reported it. The betrayal stung even though I'd barely known Marcus. He'd seemed so nervous, so earnest. The perfect cover. Where is he now? Franco has him secured. He's waiting for me to decide what to do with him. Lorenzo's voice was cold, empty. The wolf was fully in control now. I have to go. Kale will stay with you. And Dr. Rosen is coming back this afternoon to check your ankle. Don't leave the penthouse. Lorenzo. He crossed to the bed, kissing me hard. I know what you're going to say. That we need him alive, that he might know where Hawk is. I know. But part of me wants to kill him anyway, just for putting you in danger. Don't. We need information more than we need revenge. When did you become the voice of reason? Around the same time you became reckless. We keep trading. I touched his face. Be careful. If Marcus was the leak, Hawk knows we found him. He might try something. Let him try. The promise in his voice was dark, absolute. I'm done playing defense. It's time Hawk learned what happens when you back a wolf into a corner. He left, taking half his security with him. Kale positioned himself outside my door, a silent guardian. I tried to rest, but my mind wouldn't cooperate. Something about this felt wrong. Too easy. Hawk had stayed ahead of us for weeks, and now suddenly we find his source. Just like that. Unless Marcus wasn't the only leak. Or wasn't a leak at all, but a plant. A way for Hawk to feed us false information, to make us think we'd solved the problem while the real traitor remained hidden. I grabbed my phone, texting Franco, "Don't trust anything Marcus says. Could be disinformation. Check his story carefully." The reply came seconds later, already on it. Lorenzo thinks same thing. We're being thorough. I set the phone down, frustrated by my inability to help. I was trapped in this penthouse, hobbled by a sprained ankle, while Lorenzo walked into what could be another trap. The day dragged by with agonizing slowness. Dr. Rosen came and went, pronouncing my ankle healing nicely and my ribs not as bad as they could be. She left more painkillers and another warning about rest that I ignored as soon as she left. I hobbled to Lorenzo's study, breaking my promise not to leave the bedroom. Cale shadowed me but didn't try to stop me. The study was exactly as we'd left it, files scattered across the desk, the wall screen still showing the Orpheum blueprints. I sat in Lorenzo's chair and pulled up the financial records we'd been analyzing. There had to be something we missed. Some pattern, some clue that would lead us to Hawk. I spent hours going through transactions, cross-referencing dates, looking for anything unusual. My eyes burned. My ankle throbbed. I didn't care. And then I found it. A series of payments, buried in Sergio's records. Not to Hawk's known accounts, but to a consulting firm called Corvidi Solutions. The payments started 3 years ago, long before Sergio's coup attempt. I pulled up the company registration. Corvidi Solutions was a shell company, incorporated in Delaware, with a mailing address that was just a P.O. box. But the name Corvidi, it was the scientific family name for crows and ravens. Birds. I grabbed my phone, calling Lorenzo. It went straight to voicemail. I tried Franco, same result. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I called Cale. Where's Lorenzo? Why aren't they answering? They're in the interrogation. Phone protocols, no devices allowed in the room. How long until they're done? Could be hours. Marcus isn't talking. Hours I didn't have. If Corvidi Solutions was Hawk's company, if I could trace its operations. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Smart girl. You found my real name. Want to find me too? Come to the Corvidi office. Alone. In 1 hour. Or I send federal agents to arrest Lorenzo, and you never see him again. Your choice, ghost. Run to your wolf, or save him. Clock's ticking. An address followed. Downtown. Financial district. It was a trap. Obviously, transparently a trap. But it was also our only lead. Only chance. I looked at Cale standing guard by the door. He'd never let me leave. Would stop me physically if necessary. Unless I didn't give him a choice. I stood, testing my weight on the injured ankle. Pain but bearable. I hobbled toward him, putting on my best suffering expression. Cale, I need to lie down. Can you help me back to bed? He moved toward me, his guard lowered for just a second. I grabbed the heavy crystal award from Lorenzo's desk and swung. I'm sorry, I thought as it connected with his temple. The big man dropped like a felled tree. I checked his pulse, strong and steady. He'd have a hell of a headache, but he'd live. Then I grabbed Lorenzo's spare gun from the desk drawer, stuffed it in my jacket, and limped toward the elevator as fast as my ankle would allow. I was going to face Hawk. Alone. And I was probably going to die. But at least I'd die choosing to fight instead of choosing to hide. The ghost was done being invisible. It was time to haunt the Hawk. Chapter 7. The Hunt for Hawk. The Corvidi Solutions office was in a building I'd walked past 100 times without noticing. One of those anonymous glass towers in the financial district that housed a dozen interchangeable corporations. The lobby was marble and steel, populated by security guards who barely glanced up from their phones as I limped through. 10th floor. Suite 1047. My ankle screamed with every step, but I forced myself to move steadily, naturally. Just another professional visiting another office. Nothing to see here. The gun was a heavy weight in my jacket pocket. I checked it in the cab, loaded, safety on. I'd never fired a gun in my life. Wasn't even sure I could if it came to that. But Hawk didn't need to know that. The elevator ride felt like it lasted hours. My reflection in the polished steel doors showed a pale woman with dark circles under her eyes, favoring her left leg, looking like she'd been through a war. Which I supposed I had. The doors opened on the 10th floor. The hallway was empty, eerily quiet. Suite 1047 was at the end. A frosted glass door with the Corvidi Solutions logo. A stylized raven, wings spread. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open slowly, my hand on the gun in my pocket. The office beyond was small, stark. A receptionist's desk gathering dust, a couple of chairs, a door leading to an inner office. "Come in, Miss Greaves." Hawk's voice, pleasant and cultured, drifting from the inner office. "We've been expecting you." I stepped inside, letting the door close behind me with a soft click that sounded like a cell door locking. The inner office was larger, with windows overlooking the city. Hawk sat behind a desk, looking exactly as he had in the theater basement. Forgettable features, wire-rimmed glasses, the face of a man you'd never remember. But he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was a woman I'd never seen before, late 50s with severe features and cold, intelligent eyes. She wore a federal badge on her belt. "Special Agent Catherine Reeves," Hawk introduced her. "FBI Organized Crime Division. She's been facilitating my work for the past decade. Catherine, this is the famous ghost who's been causing us so much trouble." Agent Reeves studied me with the clinical detachment of a scientist examining a specimen. "She doesn't look like much. This is the girl who's had Lorenzo Volkov running in circles. Appearances deceive." Hawk leaned back in his chair. "She found something even Volkov's people missed, the Corvidi connection. That takes intelligence. And coming here alone takes either remarkable courage or remarkable stupidity. I haven't decided which yet." "Both probably," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "You wanted me here. I'm here. Now tell me what you want." "What I want?" Hawk smiled. "I want what your father promised me 6 years ago and never delivered. He said if I protected you, kept you invisible, made sure the Castellanos never found you, he'd give me exclusive access to his shipping routes. Routes that connected directly to ports in Eastern Europe, South America, Asia. The most valuable logistics network in organized crime. My father's dead. His routes died with him." "Did they?" Agent Reeves spoke for the first time, her voice sharp. "We've been monitoring Volkov's operations for years. His shipping company uses the exact same routes, the exact same contacts. Your father didn't die, he just changed his name. Became someone new. Became Michael Volkov, Lorenzo's business consultant." The world tilted. "No, that's not. My father died in Nebraska. Car accident. I identified the body." "You identified a body," Hawk corrected gently. "But forensic identification is surprisingly easy to manipulate when you have federal resources. A John Doe who matched your father's general description. Dental records that could be altered, a closed casket viewing. You saw what we wanted you to see." My legs nearly gave out. I grabbed the back of a chair to stay upright. "You're lying." "Am I?" Hawk pulled out a tablet, swiping through photos. He turned it toward me. The first photo showed a man in profile. Older, grayer, but with features that made my breath catch. My father's nose. His jaw. His way of standing with his weight on his left foot. The second photo showed the same man standing beside Lorenzo at what looked like a business meeting. The third showed him at the docks, directing a shipment, flanked by Lorenzo's men. "Michael Volkov," Hawk said. "Your father. He's been working for Lorenzo for the past 5 years, running the very operations he promised to give me access to. When I asked him to honor his debt, he refused. Said he'd found a better arrangement. That his daughter was safer with Volkov protecting her than with our agreement. Where is he?" The words came out as a whisper. "If he's alive, where is he? That's what I'd like to know. He disappeared 3 weeks ago, right around the time Lorenzo started investigating Sergio. My theory. Lorenzo found out about his real identity, found out he'd been lying about his past. Your father ran rather than face the wolf's judgment." Agent Reeves stepped forward. "Here's what's going to happen, Miss Greaves. You're going to help us find your father. In exchange, we'll make the federal case against Volkov disappear. He won't go to prison. His empire stays intact. Everyone wins. Except my father. Your father made his choices. He knew the risks. He gambled on Volkov's protection and lost." Hawk's voice was cold. "But you still have value. Help us locate him, and I'll consider his debt paid. You and Volkov can ride off into whatever sunset criminal enterprises allow. It was too much. Too many revelations. Too many impossible choices. My father was alive. Had been alive this whole time. Had been working for Lorenzo, the man I'd fallen in love with. Did Lorenzo know? He had to know. You don't employ someone for 5 years without knowing their real identity. Which meant he'd been lying to me. Letting me mourn a father who wasn't dead. Letting me believe I was alone in the world when my father was right there, in his organization. The betrayal cut deeper than any of Hawk's threats. I need proof, I said. More than photos. I need to talk to him. Hear his voice. Hawk smiled like I'd passed some kind of test. I was hoping you'd say that. He pulled out a phone, dialing. It rang twice before someone answered. Hello. A man's voice. Older, rough from years of smoking. My father's voice. The room spun. I grabbed the phone from Hawk's hand, pressing it to my ear. Dad. Long pause. Then, Sasha. Baby, is that you? Tears burned my eyes. You son of a bitch. You let me think you were dead. You let me grieve. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. It was the only way to keep you safe. The Castellanos, Hawk, everyone who wanted what I knew. As long as they thought I was dead, they'd leave you alone. And it worked. You were invisible. Safe. Until I saved Lorenzo's life. Another pause. I heard about that. Heard you were with him now. That's good, Sasha. He's a good man. Better than me. He'll protect you. Did he know? Did he know who you really were? Silence. Long enough to be an answer. He knew, my father finally said. Figured it out about a year ago. Confronted me, made me tell him everything. But he let me stay. Let me keep working. Said everyone deserves a second chance, even liars like me. Where are you? Can't tell you that. Can't tell anyone. I've got to disappear for real this time. Got to make sure no one can use me against you or Lorenzo. I'm calling to say goodbye, baby. And to tell you I'm sorry. For everything. For the life I gave you, for the choices I made, for... Stop. My voice cracked. Just stop. You don't get to apologize now, after 6 years. You don't get to call me baby, like we're still a family. We are still a family. You're still my daughter. And I'm still proud of you. Proud of the woman you've become. Strong. Smart. Brave enough to save a man's life even when you knew it would cost you your invisibility. He laughed, a sound halfway between joy and grief. You're better than I ever was. That's not a high bar. I know. But for what it's worth, I love you. Always have. Everything I did, every choice I made, it was to give you a chance at something better than this life. Even if I failed, even if I made it worse, I tried. That has to count for something. It doesn't. It really doesn't. But my voice was thick with tears. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye, baby. Take care of yourself. And take care of Lorenzo. He's going to need you before this is over. The line went dead. I stood there, the phone in my hand, tears streaming down my face. Everything I'd believed about my father, about my past, about Lorenzo. All of it was lies. Beautiful, terrible lies. Hawk gently took the phone back. Touching. But we still have a problem. Your father won't come in. Won't honor his debt. Which means I need you to bring him to me. I don't know where he is. But Lorenzo does. Or he can find him. Your father trusts Lorenzo. He'll meet with him. And when he does, Hawk's smile was thin, cruel. You'll be there to ensure the meeting happens. To ensure Lorenzo understands that if he doesn't hand over your father, the federal case proceeds. His empire falls. Everyone he's protected gets thrown to the wolves. Metaphorically speaking. You're asking me to betray Lorenzo. To help you destroy everything he's built. I'm asking you to choose. Your father's life or Lorenzo's empire. Save one, lose the other. There's no third option. No clever escape. Just a simple choice. He leaned forward. What's it going to be, Ghost? Who do you save? Before I could answer, the office door exploded inward. Lorenzo came through like an avenging angel, Franco and Cale behind him, weapons drawn. His eyes found me instantly, taking in the tears on my face, Hawk at the desk, Agent Reeves reaching for her weapon. Nobody moves. Lorenzo's voice was death itself. Nobody breathes unless I say so. Agent Reeves froze, her hand on her gun. This is a federal operation, Volkov. You're interfering with a corrupt agent working with a criminal facilitator to extort and murder. Yes, I know. Lorenzo's smile was terrible. Did you think we didn't know about you, Catherine? Franco's been investigating you for weeks. We have documentation of every meeting with Hawk, every payment, every time you've used your badge to protect his operations. The Attorney General is very interested in seeing those files. Reeves went pale. You're bluffing. Franco, send the files. All of them. To everyone on the list. Franco pulled out his phone, tapping. Done. Justice Department, FBI Internal Affairs, Washington Post, Chicago Tribune. It's out there now. She's done. Hawk's expression didn't change, but I saw his hand move toward a drawer in the desk. Lorenzo saw it too. Don't. The gun in Lorenzo's hand was steady, unwavering. I've already lost too much because of you. I'm not losing her too. Her. Hawk looked at me, understanding dawning. Oh, this is delicious. The wolf fell in love with the ghost. Your father was right. You are safer with him than with me. He'd burn the whole world down for you, wouldn't he? Without hesitation, Lorenzo confirmed. Now answer my question. Where is Michael Greaves? Why would I tell you that? He's the only leverage I have left. Because if you don't, I'll kill you. Right here, right now. And I'll make it slow enough that you'll beg to tell me everything before I finally let you die. The temperature in the room dropped to Arctic. This was the wolf fully unleashed. No mercy, no hesitation, just predatory certainty. Hawk studied Lorenzo for a long moment. Then he laughed. You won't kill me. Not with a federal agent as witness. Not when it would mean throwing away everything you've built for one woman. You're not that far gone, Volkov. Not yet. Try me. I saw Lorenzo's finger tighten on the trigger. Saw the absolute certainty in his eyes. He was going to do it. Going to kill Hawk and damn the consequences. Lorenzo, don't. I moved between him and Hawk, my injured ankle nearly buckling. Don't do this. Don't throw everything away. Not for this. Not for me. Move, Sasha. No. Listen to me. Killing him doesn't solve anything. Reeves is already finished. Her career is over, she'll be arrested within hours. Hawk without federal protection is just another criminal you can handle through legal channels. But if you kill him now, if you cross this line, you become everything your father was. Everything you've been trying not to be. I don't care. He tried to kill me. He threatened you. He's been manipulating your father for years. He deserves to die. Maybe. Probably. But not like this. Not in a way that destroys you too. I reached up, touching his face. You told me once that you wanted to be better than your father. That you wanted a legacy worth leaving. This isn't it. This is just revenge. And revenge won't bring back the years my father stole from me. Won't undo the lies. Won't fix any of it. His hand was shaking now. The gun still pointed at Hawk, but I could see the war in his eyes. He'll just disappear again. Start over somewhere else. Do this all again to someone else's family. Then we stop him legally. We expose him. We make sure everyone knows what he is, what he's done. We destroy his reputation, his network, his ability to ever operate again. That's worse than death for someone like him. Being seen, being known, being remembered as a monster instead of a ghost. I turned to Hawk. He's right about one thing. My father will meet with Lorenzo. He trusts him. And when he does, he'll have a choice. Turn himself in, cooperate with authorities, testify against you and everyone in your network. Or run and spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, knowing his daughter hates him and the man who protected him wants him dead. And why would I allow that? Lucas, why wouldn't I just kill you both right now and disappear before the authorities arrive? Because you're smart enough to know it's over. Reeves is burned, your federal protection is gone, and every organization that ever used your services is about to be exposed when my father testifies. You can run, but every criminal enterprise in North America will be hunting you. You'll be looking over your shoulder for the rest of your probably very short life. I met his empty eyes. Or you can cooperate. Turn state's evidence. Give up everyone you've worked with. In exchange, witness protection. New life. Actual invisibility instead of the illusion you've been living. Hawk was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. A real smile this time, almost admiring. Your father raised you well. You think like a survivor. I learned from the best. And the worst. I looked back at Lorenzo. Lower the gun. Please. Trust me. Trust that there's a better way than this. For a heartbeat, I thought he wouldn't do it. Thought he'd pull the trigger anyway and deal with the consequences. Then, slowly, he lowered the weapon. Franco, he said, his voice hollow. Call your contact at the Attorney General's office. Tell them we have Silas Hawke and a corrupt federal agent ready to cooperate in exchange for deals. And tell them. He looked at me, something breaking in his expression. Tell them we also know the location of a fugitive witness who's been living under an assumed identity for 6 years. Someone they're very interested in talking to. My father. He was giving up my father. Lorenzo. It's the only way, Sasha. The only way to end this cleanly. Your father testifies, Hawke goes away, Reeves loses everything and we. He stopped. We figure out what comes next. The federal agents arrived 20 minutes later. They took Hawke and Reeves into custody without incident. Hawke went quietly, almost peacefully, as if he'd been waiting for this ending all along. As they led him past us, he paused, looking at me. Your father was right about one thing. You are safer with Volkov than you ever were with me. Not because he's stronger or smarter, but because he's willing to lose everything for you. That's the difference between us. I'd sacrifice anyone to survive. He'd sacrifice himself to keep you alive. Then he was gone, disappearing into federal custody, becoming just another case file instead of a legend. We gave our statements. Franco provided the documentation he'd compiled, years of investigation into Reeves, into Hawke's network, into the web of corruption that had protected them both. And then we were free to leave. Lorenzo didn't speak during the drive back to the penthouse. Neither did I. Too much had happened. Too many revelations. Too many lies exposed. When we finally arrived, he went straight to his study, poured himself a drink, and stood at the window, staring out at the city. I followed him, my ankle throbbing, my ribs screaming, my heart breaking. How long have you known? He asked. About my father. 14 months. He came to me looking for work, using the name Michael Volkov. Said he was distant family, third cousin twice removed, something believable enough. He was good, knew shipping, knew logistics, knew how to move product without attracting attention. Hired him. And then I started noticing things. The way he held himself. The way he looked at photos of you I had in the secure files. The way he asked questions about you without asking questions. You had photos of me. Before you ever met me. Background checks. I run them on everyone who enters my territory. When you started working at the Vigneto, when I learned a bartender there had connections to the Castellanos through her father. Yes, I had photos. I wanted to know if you were a threat. He turned to face me. You weren't. You were just a girl trying to be invisible. Trying to survive. And your father was trying to do the same thing. Survive and watch over you from a distance. Why didn't you tell me? When you brought me here, when everything happened between us. Why didn't you tell me my father was alive? Because he asked me not to. Begged me actually. Said it was safer for you not to know. That if you knew, you'd try to see him, and that would paint a target on both your backs. He said. Lorenzo's voice cracked. He said the greatest gift he could give you was the freedom to grieve him and move on. To not be tied to his mistakes anymore. That wasn't his choice to make. It wasn't yours either. I know. And I'm sorry. I should have told you the truth. Should have given you the choice. But I was afraid. Afraid you'd hate me for keeping it from you. Afraid you'd choose him over me. Afraid you'd leave and I'd never see you again. He set down his drink. I've been afraid since the moment I met you. Terrified that I'd lose you before I even really had you. You don't have me, Lorenzo. You never did. You can't possess a person, can't keep them with fear and lies and secrets. I know. He crossed to me, falling to his knees in front of me. This powerful, dangerous man on his knees. I know. And I'm sorry. For everything. For taking your freedom, for lying about your father, for putting you in danger over and over. For falling in love with you when I had no right to. I looked down at him, tears streaming down my face. When this started, you told me to ask you again in a week. To ask when I'd had time away from you, time to think clearly. To ask how I felt. Don't. You don't have to say it. I already know. He started to stand. I stopped him, my hand on his shoulder. I'm in love with you too. God help me, I'm completely, stupidly, impossibly in love with you. And I hate it. I hate that I fell for my captor. That I can't separate the man who held me prisoner from the man who reads poetry and shows mercy to his enemies. I hate that I don't know if what I feel is real or just Stockholm Syndrome with a romantic veneer. Then leave. Right now. Walk away. I won't stop you. Won't try to find you. You'll be free. Really free. That's the problem, Lorenzo. I don't want to leave. I want to stay. I want to figure out if this thing between us can survive in the real world. When I'm not your prisoner and you're not my captor. When we're just two broken people trying to build something that isn't based on lies and fear. He looked up at me, hope and devastation warring in his expression. How? How do we do that? We start with the truth. All of it. You tell me everything about my father, about your organization, about the things you've done that you're ashamed of. And I'll decide if I can live with it. If I can love you knowing all of it. And if you can't, then I'll leave. For real this time. And you'll let me go because that's what love actually is. Wanting someone's freedom more than you want their presence. I cupped his face. But maybe I can. Maybe we can find a way through this. Together. He stood, pulling me against him. His arms around me like he was trying to hold together something already breaking apart. I love you, he whispered against my hair. Even if you leave. Even if you decide you can't live with who I am. I'll love you until the day I die. I know. I held him tighter. I know. And that terrifies me more than anything Hawk ever did. We stood there in his study. Two people who'd found each other in the darkness and didn't know how to live in the light. The hunt for Hawk was over. But the hardest part, figuring out who we were without the danger, without the fear, without the excuses, that was just beginning. Chapter 8. The Gala. 3 days after Hawk's arrest, my father walked into Lorenzo's penthouse like a ghost returning to haunt the living. I was in the library when Franco brought him up. I heard their voices first. Franco's low rumble. And another voice I'd spent 6 years trying to forget and 3 days trying to reconcile with the man I'd spoken to on the phone. She's in the library, Franco said. I'll give you 10 minutes. That's all I need. A step. Then silence. Then he was standing in the doorway, and I was looking at a dead man. He'd aged. Gray had overtaken the brown in his hair, lines carved deep around his eyes and mouth. He was thinner, harder, like he'd been worn down to his essential elements. But it was unmistakably him. My father, Michael Greaves, alive and standing in front of me. Sasha. Just my name, weighted with 6 years of absence. I stood, the book I'd been pretending to read falling from my lap. Don't say my name like you have the right. I don't. I know I don't. He took a step into the room, hands up, placating. But I'm here anyway. Lorenzo said you wanted to see me. Said you had questions. I have more than questions. I have 6 years of grief, Dad. 6 years of believing you were dead. 6 years of blaming myself, thinking if I'd been in that car with you, maybe I could have saved you, or at least died with you instead of living alone. My voice cracked. Do you have any idea what that was like? Yes, because I spent those same 6 years watching you from a distance, wanting to reach out, wanting to tell you I was alive but knowing it would put you in more danger. Knowing the only gift I could give you was my absence. That wasn't your choice to make. It was the only choice I could make. He moved closer, his hands trembling. The Castellanos wanted you dead. Hawk wanted to use you as collateral. Everyone I'd ever crossed, everyone who wanted revenge. They all knew you were my weakness. As long as they thought I was dead, as long as you were invisible, you were safe. But if I contacted you, if they knew I was alive, they'd come after both of us. I understand the logic, Dad. I just don't forgive it. I sank back into the chair, suddenly exhausted. Why did you do it? Why testify against the Castellanos? Why not just disappear in the first place? He pulled up another chair, sitting across from me. Because I thought I could be smart. Thought I could eliminate my competition, consolidate power, build something that would keep us safe and wealthy. The feds offered me a deal. Testify, go into witness protection, start over with a clean slate. Seemed perfect. Except I underestimated how far the Castellanos' reach extended. How good they were at finding people who didn't want to be found. So you faked your death. With Hawk's help, yes. He had the resources, the federal connections through Reeves. It cost me everything I had, plus a promise. My shipping routes, the ones I'd built over 20 years. He'd get exclusive access, and in return you'd be untouchable. Anyone tried to hurt you, he'd eliminate them. It was insurance. Until I interfered with his contract on Lorenzo. Until that, yes. He smiled sadly. You saved his life. Do you know how proud that made me? How terrified. You did the one thing I'd spent your whole childhood teaching you never to do. You got involved. You made yourself visible. I couldn't watch him die. Couldn't just look away. I know. Because you're better than I ever was. You have a conscience that won't let you be silent in the face of evil. Even when silence would save you. He reached out as if to touch my hand, then thought better of it. That's all your mother. She was the good in us. When she died when you were 8, I thought I'd lost the only thing keeping me human. But you carried it forward. You're her legacy. The mention of my mother, a subject we'd never talked about, a wound too painful to probe, made tears burn my eyes. Don't use her memory to justify what you did. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just trying to explain. I made terrible choices, Sasha. I was selfish and cowardly, and I hurt you in ways I'll never be able to repair. But everything I did, every lie I told, every disappearing act, it was all to keep you alive. That's not justification. It's the only truth I have. We sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, the city carried on, indifferent to our reunion, our pain, our complicated history. Lorenzo's making a deal with the feds, I finally said. You testify against Hawk's entire network, everyone he's worked with, everyone who used his services. In exchange, actual witness protection this time. Far away from here, far from Chicago, far from anyone who might want revenge. And far from you. Yes, far from me. I met his eyes. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe we both need distance. Need to figure out who we are without the lies between us. Will you ever forgive me? The question hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to say yes, wanted to give him that absolution. But the wound was too fresh, too deep. I don't know. Ask me again in a year. Or 5. Or never. I don't know, Dad. I just know that right now I can't. And forcing it won't make it real. He nodded, accepting the rejection with the same resignation he'd accepted everything else. Lorenzo's a good man. Better than me. He'll take care of you. I don't need him to take care of me. I'm not a thing to be protected and passed between men like property. I know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant he loves you. Really loves you. The kind of love that makes you want to be better than you are. Hold on to that, Sasha. It's rarer than you think. How would you know? You loved Mom and it didn't make you better. It made you paranoid and controlling, and eventually it made you. It made me someone who'd do anything to keep you safe. Even die. Even stay dead. He stood. My 10 minutes are up. Franco's waiting to take me back into custody. But before I go, I need you to know something. Everything I did, every choice I made, it was wrong. I see that now. But if I had to do it all again, knowing it would end like this, with you hating me and me disappearing forever, I'd still do it. 'Cause you're alive. You're here. You're safe. And that's all that matters. That's not all that matters. My life isn't worth living if it's built on lies and death and guilt. Maybe not. But it's still a life. And someday, maybe not today, maybe not for years, but someday you'll have a chance to build something real. Something honest. Something that isn't poisoned by my mistakes. When that day comes, don't let your anger at me stop you from taking it. Promise me that much. I wanted to refuse. Wanted to tell him he didn't get to ask me for promises anymore. But looking at him, this broken, aging man who'd loved me in the only way he knew how, even if it was all wrong, I found I couldn't. I promise. He smiled, and for a moment I saw the father I'd known as a child, before the paranoia and the violence and the fear. The man who'd read me bedtime stories and taught me to see patterns in language. The man I'd loved before I learned to fear him. Goodbye, Sasha. Be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you. Then he was gone, Franco's heavy footsteps echoing as he escorted my father to whatever fate awaited him in witness protection. I sat alone in the library, crying for the father I'd lost twice. Once to a fake death, once to the truth. Lorenzo found me there an hour later. He didn't speak, just sat beside me and pulled me against his chest, letting me cry until I had nothing left. 2 weeks later, Lorenzo's legal troubles evaporated like morning fog. The federal case collapsed when Reeves's corruption was exposed. Every piece of evidence she'd compiled, every warrant she'd obtained, every witness she'd interviewed, all of it was tainted by her relationship with Hawk. The prosecutors had no choice but to drop the charges. Sergio, facing a mountain of evidence and the reality of life in prison, took a plea deal. 20 years with possibility of parole. He'd be an old man when he got out. His ambitions reduced to dust. Marcus, the communications specialist who'd been feeding information to Hawk, got a bullet in the head. His body washed up in the Chicago River with a note pinned to his chest. Traitors drown. I didn't ask Lorenzo if he'd ordered it. I didn't want to know. My father disappeared into witness protection. Franco said he'd been relocated somewhere warm, Arizona maybe, or New Mexico, somewhere far from water and cold and memories. I tried not to think about him. Tried not to wonder if he was happy, if he was lonely, if he thought about me. Tried to focus on the future instead of the past. Which brought me to tonight. The gala. It wasn't a celebration. Not exactly. It was a statement. Lorenzo's way of showing the city, the feds, everyone who doubted him that he was still standing. Still powerful. Still the wolf. The venue was the Art Institute, the same museum where Hawk had planned to finalize his deal with Sergio all those weeks ago. Lorenzo had specifically chosen it. Taking back the space where his enemies had plotted against him. Turning it into a symbol of his victory instead of their conspiracy. You don't have to do this, he said as we dressed in his bedroom. He was in a tuxedo that probably cost more than a car, looking like he'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. I was in a gown he'd had made for me. Deep emerald silk that made my pale skin glow, cut to hide the fading bruises from the explosion but reveal enough to remind everyone I was here by choice, not by force. I know. But I want to. I turned so he could zip up the back. I'm not hiding anymore, Lorenzo. Not from your world, not from what we are, not from any of it. His hands lingered on my shoulders. What are we, Sasha? We've never named it. Never defined it. I turned to face him. We're a tragedy waiting to happen. A love story that probably shouldn't exist. A ghost and a wolf pretending we can have a happy ending. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. I reached up, straightening his bow tie. Ask me again in a year. When we've had time to figure out if this survives without the danger, without the fear pushing us together. A year, he repeated. That's a long time. It's not that long. And if we make it that far, if we're still standing, still together, still choosing this, then maybe we can start believing it's real. He kissed me, soft and deep and sweet. I'm going to hold you to that. 1 year from tonight I'm asking again. And I want a real answer. You'll get one. I promise. The gala was magnificent in the way only old money and new power could create. The museum's grand staircase was transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, white roses, champagne flowing like water. Chicago's elite mingled with Lorenzo's world. Politicians who pretended not to know what he really did, businessmen who absolutely did know and didn't care, socialites who collected scandals like other people collected art. We made our entrance at the top of the stairs. Lorenzo's hand at the small of my back, possessive and protective. Every eye turned to us. Every conversation paused. The wolf and his ghost. The criminal king and the woman who'd saved him. We were a story people would tell for years. Franco met us at the bottom of the stairs. His face carefully neutral. Everything's secure. No threats detected. But we have some unexpected guests. Who? FBI. New agents not connected to Reeves. They're here officially. As guests of the museum. But they're watching you. Watching everyone. Lorenzo's expression didn't change. Let them watch. We have nothing to hide tonight. This is a legitimate charitable event benefiting the museum's education programs. If they want to waste resources monitoring rich people drinking champagne, that's their prerogative. We moved through the crowd, Lorenzo introducing me to people whose names I'd only heard whispered. Senators, judges, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. All of them smiled and shook my hand and pretended we were at a normal party, that the man beside me wasn't one of the most dangerous criminals in the Midwest. It was surreal, performative, exactly the kind of theater Lorenzo excelled at. You're good at this, I murmured as we paused beside a Monet. The mask, the performance, being two different people at once. I've had a lifetime of practice. He picked up 2 glasses of champagne from a passing waiter, handing me one. But tonight isn't about the performance. It's about you. Me. This is your coming out. Your introduction to this world as someone who matters, not just as collateral or a witness. You're here because you choose to be. 'Cause you're with me by choice. That's the message I'm sending. To everyone who might think about using you against me. To everyone who might see you as a weakness to exploit. You're under my protection, yes. But you're also your own person. Autonomous. Dangerous in your own right. I'm not dangerous. His smile was sharp. You brought down a federal agent and a ghost who'd survived for 23 years. You found patterns no one else saw. You walked into Hawk's trap knowing you might die, but doing it anyway to save me. Trust me, little ghost, you're dangerous. Before I could respond, someone approached. A woman in her 50s with severe features and an FBI badge on a chain around her neck. Mr. Volkov. Miss Greaves. I'm Assistant Director Maria Santos. I wanted to introduce myself. Lorenzo's expression went carefully neutral. Assistant Director. I wasn't aware the FBI was interested in museum fundraisers. We're interested in many things, including the remarkable story of how a bartender became the key witness in taking down one of the most prolific criminal facilitators in recent history. Santos's smile was professional, cold. You've had quite a journey, Miss Greaves. From invisible to invaluable. That must be quite an adjustment. I'm adaptable, I said carefully. Clearly. Not many people could survive what you've been through and come out the other side looking so. She gestured at my dress, at Lorenzo's hand on my waist. Comfortable. If you have questions about my testimony, assistant director, you can contact my lawyer. Otherwise, this isn't the appropriate venue for an interrogation. This isn't an interrogation. Consider it friendly curiosity. The FBI likes to understand the people who move through our investigations. Make sure everyone's motives are clear. That no one's being coerced or manipulated into saying things that might not be entirely accurate. Lorenzo stepped forward slightly, putting himself between us. Miss Greaves's testimony was given voluntarily, with legal representation present, and has been corroborated by multiple sources including your own agents. If you're suggesting otherwise, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm simply noting that your relationship with Miss Greaves began while she was essentially your prisoner. That might color a jury's perception of her credibility, should any of this ever go to trial. There won't be a trial, I said, finding my voice. Hawk took a plea deal. Reeves is cooperating. Sergio is already sentenced. The case is closed. This case is closed. But there are always more cases, Miss Greaves. Always more investigations. And people with your unique perspective, your ability to see patterns, to understand the criminal mind, you might be useful in future operations. If you were interested in working with us in an official capacity. She was recruiting me. The FBI was trying to turn me into an informant. Lorenzo's hand tightened on my waist. She's not interested. I can speak for myself, I said, surprising us both. I looked at Santos directly. Thank you for the offer, assistant director. But no. I'm not interested in being a confidential informant or a cooperating witness or whatever euphemism you're using. I testified because Hawk tried to kill the man I love and destroyed my father's life. That's done now. I'm done now. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're still deeply embedded in Lorenzo Volkov's organization. Still positioned to see things, hear things, know things that might be relevant to ongoing investigations. Turning down a chance to work with us might look like choosing sides. And choosing the wrong side can have consequences. Is that a threat? Lorenzo's voice dropped to something deadly. It's a reality check. Miss Greaves has choices to make. I want to make sure she knows all her options. Santos pulled out a business card, offering it to me. Think about it. When you're ready to have a conversation about your future, a future that doesn't depend on a man who might not always be in a position to protect you, call me. She walked away, disappearing into the crowd of glittering socialites and corrupt politicians. I looked at the card in my hand. Maria Santos, Assistant Director, Organized Crime Division. Phone number. An email address. An escape route if I wanted it. Lorenzo was watching me. His expression carefully blank. Are you going to call her? No. I tore the card in half, then in half again, letting the pieces fall to the marble floor. I meant what I said. I'm done being used. By Hawk, by the FBI, by anyone. I make my own choices now. And your choice is me. Even knowing what that means. The danger, the scrutiny, the fact that you'll always be a target because of who you're with. My choice is me. My life. My autonomy. You're part of that, a big part. But I'm not choosing you over myself. I'm choosing both. Figuring out how to be Sasha Greaves and be with Lorenzo Volkov without losing myself in the process. He kissed me then, right there in the middle of the gala in front of everyone. It was possessive and claiming and absolutely calculated. A message to Santos, to everyone watching. This woman is mine, and I am hers, and anyone who tries to come between us will regret it. When we broke apart, the crowd had formed a discreet distance around us, giving us space, recognizing the moment for what it was. Dance with me, Lorenzo said. One dance here now. Let everyone see that we're not hiding, not afraid, not apologizing for what we are. The orchestra was playing something classical, something beautiful and melancholy. Lorenzo led me to the center of the floor, and suddenly we were dancing. His hand on my waist, mine on his shoulder, moving together with the ease of people who'd survived a war. What are you thinking? He murmured. That a year ago I was invisible. No one knew my name, no one cared if I lived or died. And now I'm dancing at a gala in a dress that costs more than I used to make in 6 months, with a man who terrifies and fascinates me in equal measure, while the FBI tries to recruit me and Chicago's elite pretend they're not watching. Do you miss it? Being invisible? I thought about it, really thought about it. The safety of anonymity. The freedom of not mattering. The loneliness of being no one. No, I said. I don't. Being invisible meant being half alive. I was so busy surviving that I forgot to live. But this. I looked up at him. This is living. Even the dangerous parts. Especially the dangerous parts. I love you, he said, and there was wonder in his voice. I love you, and I don't know how to do this. How to be a good man for you while still being the wolf for everyone else. How to protect you without imprisoning you. How to love you without destroying you. You figure it out. We figure it out. Together. I stood on my toes, kissing him softly. 1 year, remember. 1 year to see if this works. To see if we can build something real out of all the lies and violence and fear. If we can. The music swelled. Around us, other couples joined the dance floor, filling the space with movement and life. The moment was ending, the performance resuming. But for one perfect moment it had been real. We had been real. As the song ended, Lorenzo led me off the dance floor. Franco was waiting with a phone. "Boss, we've got a situation." Lorenzo's expression shifted instantly from lover to leader. "What kind of situation?" "The shipment from Rotterdam, it's been seized. Coast Guard backed by federal agents. They're going through everything." "How much did they get?" "All of it. The entire shipment. If there's anything illegal in there." "There isn't. It's legitimate cargo. I've been cleaning up the operations, remember? Cutting ties with anything that could be used against us." Lorenzo's jaw tightened. "But they'll find something anyway. Plant it if they have to. Santos wasn't here to recruit Sasha. She was here to warn me. To let me know they're coming, and this time they'll make sure the case sticks." I felt cold despite the warmth of the ballroom. "So what do we do?" Lorenzo looked at me, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. The chess master considering his options. "We prepare for war. Legal war this time. We call the lawyers, shore up our defenses, make sure every T is crossed and every I is dotted. And we hope." His smile was bitter. "We hope that I've cleaned up enough of my father's mess that there's nothing left for them to find. And if there is, then I'll do what I have to do to protect you. Even if that means..." He stopped, shaking his head. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now we finish the gala. We smile and shake hands and pretend everything is fine. Because the moment they see us rattled, the moment they know we're afraid, that's when they strike." So we did. We finished the evening playing our roles perfectly. Lorenzo the gracious host, me the mysterious woman at his side. We smiled and laughed and made small talk with people who'd sell us out in a heartbeat if it benefited them. And when it was finally over, when the last guest had left and we stood alone in the empty museum, surrounded by priceless art and the ghosts of the evening, Lorenzo pulled me close. "Whatever happens next, whatever the FBI finds or doesn't find, whatever charges they bring, I need you to know something." "What?" "You've made me better. Not perfect, not innocent, not redeemed. But better. More human. And if I go to prison, if this all falls apart, I want you to remember that. Remember that for 1 year, I tried to be the man you deserved. Even if I failed. You haven't failed. And you won't. We're going to fight this. Together." "Together," he repeated like he was testing the word. Like he'd never really believed in it before. We left the museum hand in hand, stepping out into the Chicago night. The city sparkled around us, beautiful and deadly, and ours. Somewhere out there the FBI was building a case. Somewhere enemies were plotting revenge. Somewhere the next threat was being born. But tonight we had each other. We had 1 year. We had a chance. And sometimes in this dark world, a chance was all you could ask for. Epilogue. The fever of love. 1 year later. The museum was quieter now. in the early morning hours before it opened to the public. Just security guards making their rounds and a lone woman standing in front of a painting she'd seen 100 times but never really looked at until today. I stood before Monet's Water Lilies, watching the way light and color blurred together into something that was both precise and dreamlike. The painting had been here the night of the gala, had witnessed everything: the dance, the FBI's warning, the moment Lorenzo and I had chosen to fight together instead of running separately. A year. He'd asked for a year to prove we were real. The year was up. I thought I'd find you here. His voice came from behind me, familiar and warm. I didn't turn. You're supposed to be in court. The verdict comes in at 10. I have time. And I needed to see you first. Needed to know. He moved beside me, his reflection appearing in the glass protecting the painting. Needed to know if you'd still be here when it was over. Where else would I be? Anywhere. Freewhere. You're not my prisoner anymore, Sasha. Haven't been for months. You have your own apartment, your own money, your own life. You could walk away right now and I'd have no claim on you. I finally turned to look at him. He looked tired. The past year had been brutal. Federal investigations, legal battles, the slow dismantling of the criminal empire his father had built. Lorenzo had kept his promise. He'd cleaned up the operations, gone legitimate where he could, shut down what he couldn't justify. It had cost him, not just money and power but relationships. Franco had resigned 6 months ago, disappearing into retirement with the philosophical observation that there's no profit in being legitimate. Half of Lorenzo's organization had fractured, some going to competitors, others arrested in the FBI's ongoing sweep. But Lorenzo had survived. Battered, diminished, but alive and free. At least until 10 o'clock, when the jury would decide if he'd survive the last remaining federal charge. One count of conspiracy that the prosecutors had managed to make stick despite everything. I'm not leaving, I said. I promised you a year. I promised you an answer. And I reached into my bag, pulling out a worn book with a cracked leather spine. Lorenzo's mother's collection of Italian sonnets. He'd given it to me 3 months ago, said he wanted me to have it regardless of what happened with the trial. I opened it to the marked page. The sonnet about love like fever. When I first read this, I thought it was about destructive love. About passion that consumes and destroys. And maybe it is. Maybe that's what the poet meant. I traced the circled words with my finger. But I think your mother meant something else when she marked it for you. I think she was telling you that real love is always a fever. Supposed to burn. It's supposed to make you feel alive and terrified and uncertain all at once. The question isn't whether it burns. It's whether you're strong enough to survive the fire. Lorenzo was very still, watching me with those winter-gray eyes that had once terrified me and now just made me feel seen. I'm in love with you, I continued. Not because of Stockholm Syndrome or trauma bonding or any of the psychological explanations I've tried to use to make sense of this. I'm in love with you because you saw me when I was invisible. Because you're trying to be better than your father even though it's destroying everything he built. Because you read poetry and show mercy and you're willing to go to prison rather than be the monster everyone expects you to be. That's not an answer to my question. Yes, it is. I'm staying. After the verdict, whatever it is, I'm staying. If you go to prison, I'll visit. We'll wait. I'll be here when you get out. And if you walk free, I'll still be here. Because this is real, Lorenzo. It survived the danger. It survived the fear. It survived a whole year of us trying to be normal people with an abnormal beginning. That's my answer. Choose you. Choose us. I choose this fever, even knowing it might burn us both. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hands framing my face, his forehead resting against mine. You're sure? Because once you say it, I'm never letting you go. I'll love you until the day I die. Whether that's in 50 years or this afternoon when the jury says guilty and some enemy decides to settle old scores in the courthouse. I'm sure. I kissed him softly. And you're wrong about one thing. You don't get to let me go or keep me. I'm not a possession. I'm a person choosing to stay. Choosing to love you. choosing to build a life with you, whatever that looks like. What does it look like? If I walk out of that courthouse a free man, if we actually get a future together, what do you want it to be? I thought about this question for months, turned it over in my mind during sleepless nights and quiet mornings, imagined 100 different futures, each with its own complications and compromises. I want normal, I said finally. Or as close to normal as we can get. I want to wake up next to you and not wonder if today's the day someone tries to kill us. I want to argue about whose turn it is to do dishes and what to watch on TV. I want boring domesticity with the man I love. Is that even possible for us? I don't know. But I want to try. His smile was soft, vulnerable. I want to be boring with you. I want to disappoint you with my inability to load a dishwasher correctly and my terrible taste in television. I want every mundane, ordinary, beautifully normal thing that people who didn't meet in a criminal conspiracy get to have. Then that's what we'll build. Together. We stood there in front of Monet's water lilies. Two people who'd found each other in darkness learning to exist in the light. We should go, Lorenzo said, checking his watch. The verdict. Right. The verdict. I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. Whatever happens, we face it together. I know. He squeezed my hand. But if the worst happens, if they find me guilty, I need you to promise me something. What? Don't wait for me. Don't put your life on hold for some indefinite future that might never come. If I go to prison, you live. You find happiness. You become someone amazing. And if, when I get out, you've moved on, if you've found someone else, built a different life, I'll understand. I'll be happy for you. Because that will mean at least one of us survived the fever. That's not going to happen. Promise me anyway. Promise me you'll choose yourself, even over me. I wanted to refuse. Wanted to tell him that was impossible, that I'd already made my choice and it was him, always him. But looking into his eyes, seeing the love and fear and desperate hope there, I understood what he was really asking. He was asking me to survive him, to not let loving him destroy me the way his mother's love for his father had nearly destroyed her. I promise, I whispered. But you're wrong. You're going to walk out of that courthouse today, and we're going to have our boring, beautiful, normal life. And years from now, we'll tell our grandchildren about how we met in a bar when I saved your life. And they'll think we're making it up because it sounds too much like a movie. Grandchildren. We're planning that far ahead now. Why not? We survived a year. We can survive anything. The courthouse was a circus. Media vans lined the street. Protesters held signs, some supporting Lorenzo, calling him a businessman wrongly persecuted, others demanding he be locked up forever. Federal agents in dark suits watched from the steps, their expressions carefully neutral. Franco was there despite his retirement. He nodded to Lorenzo, then to me. Cale stood nearby, no longer on Lorenzo's payroll but present anyway. Loyalty, it seemed, couldn't be bought or sold. Just was. Inside, the courtroom was packed. I took my seat behind the defense table, close enough to touch Lorenzo's shoulder if I reached forward. Close enough to be there when the verdict came. The jury filed in. 12 ordinary people who'd spent 6 weeks hearing evidence about Lorenzo's life. His business. His connection to his father's criminal empire. 12 strangers who would decide our future with a single word. Has the jury reached a verdict? The judge asked. We have, Your Honor. The jury foreman stood, holding a piece of paper that felt heavier than it had any right to be. Lorenzo's hand found mine under the table. His palm was sweating. The wolf was afraid. On the count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, how do you find the defendant? The world held its breath. Not guilty. The courtroom erupted. Shouting, crying, the judge's gavel hammering for order. But I heard none of it. I was watching Lorenzo's face as relief and disbelief warred with each other. Did we just, he started. Yes, I said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, we did. You're free. The judge was dismissing the jury, thanking them for their service. The prosecutor was gathering his files with the tight expression of a man who'd just lost his career-making case. The defense attorney was shaking Lorenzo's hand, already talking about next steps, about staying clean, about the conditions of his freedom. But Lorenzo was looking at me. 1 year, he said. You gave me 1 year to prove we were real. I'm asking for 50 more. 60 if we're lucky. However many we can steal from a world that tried to destroy us. That's a long time. Not long enough. It will never be long enough. He kissed me right there in the courtroom, in front of judges and federal agents and media cameras. A claiming kiss, a promise kiss. A kiss that said this is mine and I am hers and the world can burn for all I care. When we finally broke apart, the courtroom was clearing. The circus was moving on to the next case, the next scandal, the next story. But for us, the story was just beginning. 6 months later. The house wasn't much to look at from the outside. A small craftsman in a quiet neighborhood on the north side, with a garden that was mostly weeds and a porch that needed painting. It was a 45-minute commute to the city, had terrible water pressure, and the heating was suspect. It was perfect. Are you sure about this? Lorenzo asked as we stood on the front lawn, keys in hand. It's not what you're used to. Not what I can give you. I still have money, Sasha. We could buy something better. Something that doesn't require us to learn what a sump pump is. I'm sure. This is exactly what I want. Home we choose together. Not your penthouse, not your world. Ours. I took his hand. Besides, learning about sump pumps together sounds romantic. In a domestic, boring sort of way. You have a very strange definition of romance. I learned it from a man who quoted Italian poetry while interrogating his enemies. My standards were corrupted early. He laughed, and the sound was lighter than I'd heard in months. The weight of the trial, of the investigations, of constantly looking over his shoulder. It was finally lifting. He was learning to breathe again. We went inside. The house was empty, echoing with potential. We'd spent the last month furnishing it slowly. A couch here, a bed there, building a life piece by piece instead of having it appear fully formed like it had in Lorenzo's old world. The library goes there, I said, pointing to a room that got good afternoon light. We'll fill it with your mother's books and mine. All the stories that got us through the darkness. And this. Lorenzo pulled me toward the kitchen. This is where we'll learn to cook actual meals instead of ordering from restaurants that don't have menus. Bold of you to assume either of us can cook. We'll learn. We have time now. Time to fail and try again and eventually figure it out. We wandered through the empty house, planning futures in each room. An office where I'd work on my translation projects. A home gym where Lorenzo would do the physical training he claimed kept him sane. A guest room for the family we might someday have, or the friends we were slowly accumulating in this new legitimate life. In the master bedroom, standing in late afternoon sun, Lorenzo pulled me close. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For saving my life. Not just in the bar that night but every day since. For seeing me, really seeing me, the good and the terrible, and choosing to stay anyway. For making me believe that people can change, that monsters can become men, that love is worth the fever. I reached up, touching his face. You saved mine too. You made me visible. You made me matter. You showed me that being seen isn't always dangerous. Sometimes it's the most human thing we can do. I love you, he said. More than I thought I was capable of. More than is probably healthy. Definitely more than is wise. I love you too. And you're right, it's probably not healthy or wise. But it's real. And it's ours. And that's enough. He kissed me as the sun set through the windows of our new home, painting everything in shades of gold and rose. Outside, the world carried on. The city breathed, crimes were committed and solved, people fell in and out of love, the eternal dance of darkness and light. But inside our small house on a quiet street, the wolf and the ghost were learning to be just Lorenzo and Sasha. Just two people who'd found each other against impossible odds and decided that maybe, just maybe, happy endings were possible. Even for people like us. Especially for people like us. The fever had burned through us. We'd survived the fire. And what remained was something stronger than passion, deeper than obsession. It was love. Complicated, imperfect, beautifully real love. And it was worth every terrifying moment that had brought us here. Later that night, I found Lorenzo in what would become our library, sitting on the floor surrounded by boxes of books. His mother's sonnets were open on his lap, the pages yellowed with age. Reading the fever poem again, I asked, sitting beside him, thinking about what it means. Whether the fever is the love itself, or the longing that drives it. Whether surviving the fever means the love has ended, or transformed into something else. What do you think? He closed the book, turning to look at me. I think the fever never ends. I think real love is always burning, always consuming, always demanding everything you have. But, he touched my face gently. I think there are different kinds of fire. The destructive kind that my father had, that ate everything it touched. And the kind that forges, that tests you and shapes you and makes you stronger. And which kind is ours? I don't know yet. Ask me in another year. Or 10. Or 50. I leaned my head on his shoulder, both of us sitting in the darkness of our unfinished library, surrounded by the stories that had shaped us. My love is like a fever, longing still, I quoted softly. Do you know what comes after that line? In the full sonnet. Tell me. It says that the fever feeds on what prolongs the disease. That reason is the physician that should cure it. But reason has left, and the illness grows worse the longer the prescription is denied. So love makes us sick, reason abandons us, and we get worse over time. That's quite the romantic sentiment. No, listen to the end. It says, "For I have sworn thee fair, and thought thee bright, who art as black as hell, as dark as night." The poet sees the beloved clearly, sees the darkness, the danger, the impossible nature of the love, and loves anyway, not in spite of the darkness, but with full knowledge of it. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. Then, "That's us, isn't it? You saw exactly what I was. Criminal, killer, wolf. You saw all of it. And you stayed. And you saw me, the daughter of a traitor, someone with feet in both worlds, neither innocent victim nor willing accomplice. You saw the gray areas. And you loved me anyway. So we're both sick with the fever. Both seeing clearly and loving despite, or because of what we see." Exactly. I turned to kiss him softly. And I think that's the only kind of love that survives. The kind that doesn't need illusions. That doesn't require pretending we're something we're not. Just two people, seeing each other truly, and choosing each other anyway. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. I'm learning from a man who reads Italian sonnets about destructive love and thinks they're beautiful. They are beautiful. The destruction is part of what makes them honest. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights begin to twinkle through the window. Somewhere out there, the FBI was investigating someone else. Somewhere, criminals were plotting their next move. Somewhere, people were falling in love and falling apart in equal measure. But here, in our half-finished house with our unpacked books and our complicated history, we were building something new. The ghost and the wolf. The fever and the cure. The darkness and the light. Together. Always together. And if that was sick, if that was a fever that would never break, well, some fevers were worth burning for. This one certainly was. The end.